No, just the Thursday, the Thursday feeling.
Getting into Friday.
Getting into Friday.
This is a problem because then you're going to wake up tomorrow thinking it's Friday, and then the weekend is going to be too short for you, and then you're going to come here on Monday thinking that it's Sunday.
Thank you. So you've been forewarned.
That Monday is going to be an interesting day from the quarters of Eric.
Like let him who's been forewarned.
Just you.
Oh, yes. I
So
have
you can
been
understand
forewarned.
how you will be feeling then.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Quite.
Welcome to the show, the 16th day of October 2020. You have an interesting conversation that we're going to have today. There's a couple that has featured in a film, and this film is premiering today. It's called Softy. Now, Softy is the life and times of Boniface Mwangi in his activism career, not career, life, yeah. It basically just chronicles his journey in activism, in pursuit for justice, in the quest for elective office. It has already won a couple of awards. So Boniface will be here. Will be telling us about this particular film and what it then represents, and then he's also his journey going forward. Today is being Friday, and like we've promised, with 2 weeks to the election in Tanzania, we will be having Tanzania Fridays, and we'll be speaking to the journalists in Tanzania to get to know what's happening, how the politics is going. The opposition is claiming violence. The main opposition candidate, Tundu Lissu, whom we spoke to last Friday, he said, well, unless some certain irreducible minimums are met, he is not going to accept the outcome of this election. And, all signs are that those irreducible minimums are just a story in his head. So, he's not going to get what he hopes to get. Then also we must have an education conversation. It's been a week since schools reopened. There's been a lot of coverage on this, what's happening. So students are already being told to prepare for a national assessment next week. It has exposed a lot of gaps here and there. How are parents, how are students, how are teachers coping, how are school heads coping? That's the conversation we must have. But there's COVID. We must not forget. So let's start there.
Sure, there is, and 602 cases recorded yesterday. This is 2 down from the 604 that were recorded in the country the day before. So this also with 8 new deaths reported yesterday of people who passed on yesterday from COVID-19, taking now the country's cases to 43,143. And this is from a sample size of over 5,000. And these are the numbers that are being recorded. This is on the same day where we saw a number of things happening in the United Kingdom, in other countries in Europe. The lockdown now will be introduced in the United Kingdom because of the fact that they have seen so many cases recorded over the last couple of days. So they've reintroduced a second lockdown, and everything basically in the UK will shut down. Schools have been closed again. Children have been asked to go back home. Because of the high number of cases that have been recorded in the UK over the last couple of days. So even with the call to reopen schools, the Prime Minister then saw it fit, with his advice from medical experts and such, that schools should be closed because of these rising number of infections of COVID-19 in the UK. And it would look like, if this is the trend, that other countries in the Western Hemisphere, at least for now, if it doesn't spread, we'll probably follow this same trend. So even after there was a reopening, then asking for closure. And this started with the closure of public facilities, institutions, etc. And then now going back to schools to having those closed. All right. So we're looking at global numbers of 39,170,483 with 1.1 million deaths. This is a situation that we're looking at around the world. The United States, again, with the highest numbers of 8,216,315. The numbers continue to soar. And if we can look at just what was reported yesterday in the United States, we saw, excuse me, we saw yesterday 66,129 cases in the US. And unfortunately, 874 new deaths yesterday. All right, so India is also racking up those numbers, as we have seen, and with now 7,365,509 cases, and Brazil with 5,170,996. High numbers still continue to be recorded in the Central America and Southern American countries. That number has never really gone down. And then, like we said, high numbers still continually recorded in the UK, in France, in Spain, and Italy, and the countries around there. This is what's going on. This is what we see. Countries like Nigeria, where protests have been going on across the country in the last couple of weeks, for example, on the African continent, COVID seems to have taken a back seat in terms of collation and recording of all of this. Nigeria's cases now stand at 60,980. And with the work that's still being done to find out just how much it has been affected, the latest numbers, supposedly 148 new cases yesterday. And that's just about it. But like I said, it's taken a back seat because other things seem to have come in place in terms of importance.
And that debate really needs to focus again on Kenya. Because according to what one reads and what one hears, there's the understanding that Kenyans have relaxed their guard.
Yeah.
I think that position is actually false. It isn't as though they have relaxed their guard once a certain aspects of the economy or certain aspects, details of the economy were opened up. No. What they're referring to as relaxed guard, or the relaxed guard, is a situation that has existed for a very, very long time. Because you're talking about people not maintaining the basic norms of safety.
Yeah.
Nah.
Never really was a thing.
It was a thing up to a point. Initial stages, the moment Mombasa and Nairobi opened up, those precautionary measures, in my opinion, went out of the window. So what we're waiting for is the outcome.
How long do we need to wait for this outcome?
I don't even think it's a question of waiting. It's a question of how vigorous our testing processes will be and how we will be able to actually determine, because anticipating that people will volunteer, unless someone feels unwell, they will not go to hospital.
No.
And when we're talking about numbers, we're not talking about people who are sick or people who are in the ICU. We're talking about just people who are infected.
Right.
So until you test an adequate number of people, it is not going to be possible to know. There'll be sporadic reports of hospitals saying the people who've come in, they have noted that the numbers are increasing. There will be those, but we're talking about a consensus report where nationally we are being told this is where we are, and this is the reality of the numbers of infections. If we were to collate the numbers from each and every, not county even, sub-county or county, you will find that we're already experiencing an increase in numbers.
Yeah.
That we will find. But as to by how much, well, those are details that that's where the waiting comes in.
And those that are symptomatic and those that are asymptomatic as well.
Yes.
The seriousness of the infection, that will be the other issue.
Because remember, when you talk about feeling unwell, people, grown-ups, even children, feeling unwell does not constitute or does not necessitate you're going to hospital.
No.
You'll self-medicate. And usually you'll get better.
And you'll get okay.
Yes, and then you'll move on with your life.
Yeah. So what's happening in Uganda, Rwanda, those other countries that had gone into more stricter lockdowns? Uganda reopened, and even Rwanda as well.
Yeah, they did to a certain extent. And then, we saw that in Uganda, establishments opened, schools opened with certain students going back to school, those in their final years of primary and those in their final years of secondary went back, but everybody else has not yet gone back in Uganda. There are 10,000 cases now in Uganda, and if you just look at what they had been able to record yesterday, 48 new cases and 1 new death in the country. Even with this, there's still, just what we've been able to read, they've been able to, they've basically said, we're still keeping an eye on this. They've been able to keep things tight in terms of movement, still, even with the reopening, and asking people to still be diligent when it comes to taking care of themselves. So it's
Total,
it's a watch and see.
Total tests.
Total tests in Uganda so far that they've done against the population of just a minute, let me look at that for you. So against a population of 46 million, Uganda has done 514,923 tests. It's about 500,000 tests. Round about the same that Kenya has done. Kenya now has done about 620,000 tests. This is what we're looking at in Uganda. Still very low numbers in terms of...
so with those tests, then we have about, 5 times the number of confirmed cases?
Yes.
And almost 8 times the number of deaths?
Yes. Because now there are 800 plus deaths as a result of corona in Kenya.
Okay. Time for us to take a break at 14 minutes after 6. The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. We'll be looking at the weather shortly and also welcoming everybody on our social media handles. We are live streaming on Spice FM KE, YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter, and www.spicefm.co.ke. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice FM. Spice up your life. The weather with Spice
It's
FM.
mostly cloudy in Nairobi this morning at 16 degrees. We'll see a high today of 27, and still in the forecast it says there will be a sprinkle in Nairobi later on. In Njeri, 14 degrees and partly cloudy. Highs of 24 and lows of 14 with rains expected going into the weekend. Clear skies in Nakuru this morning at 13. Highs of 26. Also expecting some rain later as we go west. And in Eldoret, clear skies as well. Thunderstorms in the forecast for later with highs of 22. In Kisumu, it's partly cloudy at 19 degrees, going to highs of 28 today. Chance of rains going into the weekend as well. Also will be a wet weekend in Kakamega from all indications. Currently partly cloudy conditions at 16. We'll see a high of 26 today. And in Mombasa, experiencing some rain at some point. Partly cloudy conditions at the moment at 25. The high will be 30 and lows of 24. The highs will be 29 and lows of 26 in Malindi today. Partly cloudy conditions. Not a chance of rain so far. In Kampala, to step out of Kenya, however, 18 degrees and clear skies at the moment. It'll cloud up later into rains in the afternoon with highs of 26 and lows of 18. Dar es Salaam is partly cloudy at 24 degrees, highs of 30 and lows of 23. And also the rains will keep pounding down through into the weekend here. Clear skies in Johannesburg at 14 degrees, highs of 30 and lows of 13. Clear and sunny conditions throughout today. It's going to be a warm day in Joburg. And Lagos is mostly cloudy at 30 degrees. A chance of rains later on, but we'll have to wait and see. Let's take a look into Beijing, where it's mostly sunny in the afternoon in Beijing. Highs of 19 and lows of 4 today. Clear skies in London at 8. Highs of 13 and coming down to a bit chilly at 7. 9 degrees. It's a cold morning in Paris. Cloudy conditions throughout most of today with highs of 14 and lows of 7. And for now, in New York, it's 18 degrees, still Thursday, early Friday morning. Highs of 22 and lows of 17 as they get into the weekend. Cloudy conditions all through.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Now, let's hear today's proverb and then look at the big headlines. As we do that, Titus Umbetai says he's tuned in from Kisii. Harlan Kakai in Nairobi, good morning. Laban Tanui is in Nandi. Very good morning to you. Max Makanda of Masaba Butchery in Malakisi. Is it well locked? Have you been to Malakisi?
Where is Malakisi?
Good question.
Max Makanda, where is Malakisi?
This man spoke so confidently about Malakisi. I'm not quite sure where it is really.
I've heard of Malakisi
I
many
have,
times.
so
I'm
have
not
I.
sure where, which county is it?
Yes.
Masaba Butchery, Malakisi.
Masaba is Gusiland. TC, to be precise. Malakisi?
Is Malakisi in Gusiland? It should be in Western.
I don't know.
Okay,
don't
anyway.
know.
Max, please.
Tell us where you are.
Fungulia sisi your map.
Tujue Malakisi iko wapi.
Drop pin. Today's proverb, City.
If a man wants to grow a long tooth, he should have a lip to cover it.
I think so. I agree.
But why? He wants to grow a long tooth. Why are you putting conditions on? He knows it's longer than the current.
All right, so let me
and gum
change,
size.
let me change
this
the
proverb.
proverb. If a man wants to grow a long tooth,
Let
let
him.
him grow it.
Yes.
Eric said change the proverb. You don't like it.
His Excellency doesn't like long
His
teeth.
Excellency. And then it's Friday, please
Nishidake.
do
You want
what
to grow a long tooth? Just grow a long tooth.
Okay.
Why should people tell you how to live at you? Oh, then now extend your lip. Why? Anyway, if someone wants to grow a long tooth, let them.
Have a lip to cover it.
Okay.
Can't wait to hear the context of this one. Let's look at the headlines.
Okay. So, Uhuru sends BBI man to New York and rewards former IEBC bosses. There was an appointment list that came out yesterday. Handshake joint. It's interesting because the words that I used to describe these individuals. Handshake Joint Secretary Martin Kimani named envoy to the United Nations. Connie Miner, Paul Kurgat, and Margaret Mwachanya given diplomatic postings to Rome, Moscow, and Islamabad. So we saw that presidential appointments took place yesterday. Some people sent to certain either vacant positions in the ambassadorship around the world on behalf of Kenya, and then some swaps made. And so...
Connie Miner is a former commissioner with the IEBC,
Yes.
one of those three that resigned
Yes.
soon after the election. Now, she has been nominated for which?
Deputy head of mission to Rome, Italy, where her former counterpart, Consolata Miner, she has been picked as the deputy head of mission to Rome, Italy, where her former counterpart in the commission, Margaret Mwachanya, will move to Islamabad, Pakistan, in the same capacity.
Okay.
Okay.
And
then another former commissioner, Paul Kibiwot, has been picked as deputy head of mission to Moscow, Russia. Kimani has been a key player in the drafting of the BBI report, expected to be handed over to Uhuru in the coming days. And he co-chairs the team with Paul Mwangi.
Kimani is New York.
Kimani is a permanent representative, yes.
Yes. And he's not a deputy ambassador anywhere. He's going to be our the man in New York. Permanent representative.
Martin.
Yes, but I'm saying Paul Kibiwot has been picked as the deputy head of mission to Moscow, Russia.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a bit of a confusion here on Paul Kibiwot. Well, from some circles. Well, of course, it's not confusion anyway, just in some public domain. The ambassador in Russia is called His Excellency Paul K. Kurgat. Dr. Paul Kurgat.
Yeah, but Kibiwot is his deputy.
So now, is this the same man who's been demoted to become his own deputy? Because there's an ambassador who's been appointed to Moscow.
But are they the same? I mean...
There's an ambassador who's been appointed to Moscow.
Yes.
Okay.
No. Oh, yeah, go ahead, sorry.
We must allow her to talk to herself.
Sometimes.
Are you...
I'm
Growing
okay.
a-
just say yes.
I'm
growing
fine.
growing
Yes.
a long tooth.
They insist. They insist on yes. So there's a new ambassador appointed to Moscow. And the immediate outgoing ambassador in Moscow is called Dr. Paul K. Kurgat. And now we have Dr. Paul Kibiwot.
Is he also called Kurgat?
No.
How do you know?
Well, why don't we leave it at that? In the coming days, I'm sure it will become clearer. Yes.
Let's see. Yes.
Abundantly clearer.
Yes, let's see. Because it was Paul Kibiwot in the commission.
Kurgat.
Former commissioner Paul Kibiwot. Paul Kibiwot was a commissioner in IEBC.
So we are
Yes.
informed.
Well, No.
As I said, so we are informed.
Yeah. He's called Paul Kibiwot Kurgat.
So who is the ambassador in Moscow?
Paul Kibiwot Kurgat.
So there's a problem here.
Dr. Paul Kurgat is
So there's
the
a problem.
ambassador in Moscow
Unless
for
there-
quite a while.
Unless there are two individuals called Paul Kibiwot, or
possible.
unless this report is wrong, what it's saying is that Paul Kibiwot has been picked as deputy head of mission to Moscow, Russia. There's a difference between the ambassador himself and the deputy.
Yeah.
Unless these two guys have the same name.
Yeah. Or this man has been demoted to become a deputy,
Yeah.
and a new ambassador brought in.
With the same name.
Or he's
With the same
basically-
name, right?
Or he's basically just been told, Mister, this is an opportunity for you to decline this position. Go find other things to do.
Or we have other plans for you.
We have other plans for you.
Yeah,
Just
but-
decline this one.
And
Instead
then,
of just appearing like we fired you, we have something else for you to do.
transfer of services, really, not necessarily firing. Once you enter in the service of the government, if they move you to yet another docket, all they've done is transferred you.
Yeah. But if they actually move you from your senior position to become a deputy to your position, they're basically giving you a message.
Has that ever happened before? If indeed that is what we're saying has happened.
That what?
That an ambassador has been demoted to become a deputy.
Yes, his own deputy.
Within the sounds very interesting that
This
was.
is quite interesting. I'm saying it's quite interesting because he has been serving as ambassador in Moscow, Dr. Paul Kibiwot Kurgat. There's a new ambassador who's been sent to Moscow, and what's his name?
Okay.
What's the
Eric.
name? What's the name? Anyway,
Let's
So,
move on.
we
swiftly.
move on. So,
Yes, it'll become clearer.
yeah, Benson Ogutu is the new ambassador nominee to Moscow, Russia.
So the ambassador has become the deputy.
The ambassador becomes deputy,
Okay. And a new ambassador
and
steps
a new
in.
ambassador brought in.
Okay. Okay. So, moving on. Uhuru plan for power weekend is what is on the front page of The Nation. Alignment. President Kenyatta is set to meet the cabinet and Deputy President William Ruto at a retreat today as he and handshake partner Raila Odinga prepare the ground for the unveiling of the Building Bridges Initiative report. On Saturday, the head of state is scheduled to meet the leadership of the Senate and the National Assembly, who will play a key role in ensuring changes proposed to the BBI sail through the two houses. So there's a lot in store for the days ahead. All right. Today, he will meet with Cabinet and President and Deputy President William Ruto at a retreat to be held at the Kenya Wildlife Service Training School in Savo West in Taita Taveta County. Experts in communication, law, and political analysis will also join the retreat at the exclusive lodge to play advisory roles. On Saturday, the head of state is expected to meet the leadership of both the Senate and the National Assembly at State House at 11 a.m. This includes the two speakers, deputy speakers, majority and minority leaders, their deputies and whips, and chairman and vice chairpersons of both houses. A senior Senate leader yesterday told the nation that the BBI will top the agenda. The official, who sought anonymity, of course, said, "We have to be taken through it so that it passes without any hitch, unlike the revenue sharing formula that gave us a headache." Right. So the official also said that because of the sensitivity of the issue, obviously he didn't want to be named, National Assembly Majority Leader Amos Kimunya confirmed the meeting, while Majority Chief Whip Irungo Kangata said he expected the talks to focus on how to ensure government business flows in the House without a hitch.
Okay. So meeting is in Manyani,
Today,
or is that the? And then the cabinet.
tomorrow at State House.
Cabinet is a retreat.
Cabinet is a retreat, and then the meetings with the Senate and the National Assembly are at State House tomorrow at 11.
So the retreat is in the same place.
The retreat is in
Manyani.
Taita Taveta County.
Manyani.
It's
Yes.
in Manyani.
Best known for its prison, where very many anti-colonial citizens of Kenya spent a great deal of time.
Yep.
And it's in the middle of literally nowhere.
Is this some kind of imagery playing out here for you?
It is.
You don't toe the line, we leave you here.
You know, of all the places, one could go to. You know that when I say it's in the middle of nowhere, I mean it.
Literally nowhere.
Is that the KWS training school, right?
Yeah, there's
Yes,
a
it is.
KWH.
There's a lodge.
There is a combination training school, KWS,
Lodge.
prison. So
Choose.
decide.
Choose.
You misbehave at the lodge, straight prison.
And we leave you there.
If you think you're going to escape from the prison, straight KWS.
US. Go and meet with the lions. What's interesting here in that article is it's talking about the president meeting the cabinet and the deputy president.
Yeah, it's like he's not part of the cabinet.
Right.
Now that is where now it is how the article is written.
It's like having, after your meal, you
Yes.
have dessert and ice cream.
Is it mischief on the part of the of the
Oh,
right?
The writer?
the writer, yes. Yes, because surely it's like this agenda of the split between the president and his deputy. It must be enhanced at whatever cost. Yes. Forgetting, as we said yesterday, these are politicians.
Yeah. And the meeting with the MPs, the leadership of the House, is not on party lines.
No.
It's meeting the majority and
Bipart-
minority
yes,
leaders.
yes.
Government.
It's a bipartisan meeting. I mean, everybody who-
Majority, minority.
Yes.
And
in both houses.
and it said that Raila is also expected to join that meeting. All right. So the BBI will be presented, maybe.
One thing that is clear, the BBI might be discussed. But it's going to be discussed.
Okay.
That's for sure.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's take a break and look at what's happening on the roads this bright Friday morning. It's surely. It looks like noon already.
She's out in all her glory, the sun.
Reho Vidolo says Malakisi should be somewhere in Bungoma or Busia border.
Yes.
Okay. Western Kenya.
Somewhere in Bungoma or Busia border. So you just tell us where it is. Why are you being as if if it's not in Kenya, it's in Tanzania? Where is Malakisi?
Well, actually, Eric, I think that one you haven't got it right. If it isn't in Kenya, it's either in Tanzania, Ethiopia,
Or Uganda.
Sudan, or Somalia.
6:30. Let's take a look at the roads.
Spice up
Okay,
your
so
life.
it's Friday, no surprise already. Traffic out of the city. If you're heading to the Rift this morning, heading out west from Nairobi, use the Limuru route or Gatambura because the highway isn't moving just before the Mai Mahiu junction. That's not happening this morning. Expected so. Usually Friday, everybody's out of the city for one good reason or another. And so the traffic is already building. If you're heading out of the city, if you're heading in that direction, you can use the Limuru route or what we're being told, the Gatambura route, because this other one is not moving at all. Mombasa Road today is not so bad at the moment. So that's some good news. You can breathe out. It's still slightly packed in some areas, but it shouldn't be too terrible. So I want to give you some updates as we're going through that. Coming off of the Thika Superhighway into the CBD as well is flowing smoothly. Not a bumper-to-bumper situation just yet. If it gets there, we'll let you know. Spice FM KE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter or text us on 40127. Let's see how we're going to keep things moving this Friday morning.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
We have an answer from Kipto. What does he say? Where is Malakisi?
Malakisi is in Bungoma County, near Kolania Boys specifically, over the hill and around the corner, because that was his former high school, so he knows.
Okay. So
So now
Kolanya
you're okay?
Boys is not in Malakisi. It's near Malakisi.
Malakisi is in Bungoma County. Now, Malakisi is also near Kolania Boys.
You see,
And that was his former high
What
school.
that means is there's a center that
Called
goes by
Malakisi.
that name. Okay,
Malakisi.
so the school is probably near that center. And that area around that center.
It's called Malakisi.
Yes.
Could there be more than one Malakisi?
And by the way, as you said, up and down the hill and then on the right. Mean that road doesn't go to the left.
Only the right.
Only the right.
Yes.
The truth of the matter is, if you are in that area, it wouldn't be that difficult.
Yeah.
Often when we try to understand things, we come in with the knowledge that we already have.
Yeah.
Like thinking about how to come to the standard media headquarters on
On a
Mombasa
Friday
Road.
morning. I'm telling you. This expressway will bring out the best in people by the time it's December.
You would think it's a simple, straightforward thing, isn't
Oh,
it?
there's roadworks in Mombasa Road. Hey, what? Kitaumana. So, okay, no, let's not do that one.
No?
An angry man is what. DP
While you're thinking
is
of
what
that,
DP
why
is
don't I
being-
just mention in passing
Yes.
that new regulations pave way for the Huduma number cards?
Yeah.
All right? The National Integrated Identity Management Systems, NIMS, as it is commonly called, is moving forward swiftly, and everything regarding the opportunity for people who had not previously registered with this service will do so. And it is touted as being, it is aimed at enhancing planning and public service delivery. This is quite aside from the very many issues that have been brought to the fore regarding this system. It is said that it will collate and it will put together in one place exactly what collation means.
Okay.
Yes. Information about individuals, citizens, non-citizens, young children, adults who have just attained that particular status, so that information pertaining to individuals within the country at the touch of a button can be available. The problem has always been one of protecting this data. Now, this matter went to court, and the High Court decided it isn't as serious a matter until we can conclusively prove that the government does not have in place legislation that can protect data.
Yeah.
Yes. So long as we understand how data will be protected,
Yeah.
then it should not be an issue.
And now we have even a new data commissioner who was appointed last week to, be in charge of protecting data. All that is in line.
Yes. Also, in passing, there is this small matter of the dissolution of Parliament and the matter of judges being picked to hear the petition. Okay. It is the Deputy Chief Justice, Philomena Mwilu, who had that task of picking these judges. And the reason for this is really very simple, because the Chief Justice...
He's the one who wrote the letter.
Precisely.
Okay.
So he cannot be there. Now, the judges who have been, should we say, appointed or mentioned, Justice Lydia Chode, Jojo Dunga, James Macau, Anthony Ndungu, and Pauline Nyamoya. These are the names that have been mentioned.
All right.
All right. So they will hear this case. Now,
Interesting.
carry on with what you wanted to say.
That will be very interesting. So, this Muchuki Park. Michuki Park near the Globe Roundabout
Yes.
and Kijabe Street.
The gentleman, was his name Michuki or Muchuki?
Meshoke.
Okay. Me. Carry on, please.
I said Muchuki.
Yes,
Oh, people say Muchuki.
no, I think there's
Hey,
a carry.
Muchuki. Well, in 2007, his name had become Muchuki.
Muchuki.
Somebody tell Muchuki. Now, anyway, back to the Michuki Park. The Michuki Park that is in that area of Nairobi, and it was recently unveiled by the president after some work done by the NMS and had taken a while, the Forest Service, the Ministry of Environment. There's been a tussle over this piece of land, and this tussle has been there for a couple of years. Now, the government is accusing a private developer of trying to grab the land where Michuki Memorial Park stands by launching a fake claim in court. They were responding to a suit by, there's a company now called Uwaso Nyarobe Waterfront Limited, and the private developer and Keriako Tobiko, the CS for Environment, has dismissed their suit as faceless entity operating as a ghost company. Tobiko stressing that the company was formed with the sole goal of taking over the park. The history of this company, by the way, is it goes very many years back
It does.
into the entire area of Grogan land, Grogan, downtown Nairobi, Kirinyaga Road. And there's a company that claims that it bought a piece of land from the Grogan. Then there was transfer of this land. Then there were other companies that came in and they held the land for quite a while. Then they came up with a plan to put a mixed development there, some residential and commercial property over very many years. The matter has even been canvassed with the Ministry of Environment over many years. So when they saw now that this thing has been launched, they decided, okay, you guys, we've been talking, but it appears that we are not going anywhere. So they've gone to court. And they sued the government for trespassing onto the land and forcibly taking it over. They are seeking 12 billion shillings as compensation for loss of their property. They want the Ministry of Environment cited for trespass, and the Sears Tobacco specifically held liable for the seizure of the land. They say they acquired this land in 1999 and they plan to develop an urban village with 2,500 modern kiosks, 600 affordable housing units, office blocks, retailer shops, an amphitheater, a parking area for 3,300 vehicles. This will be interesting.
What is even more interesting is senators, it is being reported on page 6 of the Star, want to stop retiring governors from vying in the 2022 polls.
They do.
As things stand, a court ruling has stated categorically that anyone wishing to vie for any other seat should resign 6 months prior to the polls. But senators are pushing to amend the constitution in order to achieve this, while an act of parliament seeks to bar them. So, this is one occasion where the two houses that we have seem to have a differing view on this particular matter.
That ruling seems to have really stoked some fires, right?
It has.
I remember we discussed it here. And this is the ruling against the Gatondo North MP, Wanjiko Kibe, where the court said, you went and applied to the IEBC to vie for the MP seat, but you were still a sitting MCA.
Yes, you are.
And that said, now then, if we take that, we have several others who could be affected by this, including Susan Keheka of Nakuru. She was the Speaker of the Nakuru County Assembly. Then she vied to become
I'm sure
a
there are
senator.
many others.
And very many others. It also now has brought in an issue where Governor Alfred Mutua has said, hey, he is opposed to that move. Because it basically says that now that he wants to vie for president, he must resign as governor at least 6 months before the election.
Well,
and very many others.
You know, if it's just that many, I think, cases haven't been taken to court on this matter, but if we were to follow it diligently, you'll find there are probably many other members of parliament, people who are probably to be MCAs. You'll find they may even be members of parliament who are now governors. You'll find if this rule is actually applied across board,
Yep.
there are very many people who will fall short of this desired mark.
True.
Governor Anyang' Nyong'o was a senator and he vied for governor.
He did.
Same as Kiraitu Murungi.
Yes. Just keep
I
going.
don't remember them resigning from the Senate to start vying. So yes, it opens up.
The governor of Vihiga
Chikamu.
was an MP.
There you go.
And the list can go on and on and on.
It
It's
is
likely
very
to
clear on
justify
public
many.
service. So if you're in public service, for example, the current Speaker of the Senate, Ken Lusaka, was a PS. He quit, he resigned as PS to go and vie as governor
Yes.
6 months prior.
Yes.
But now when it comes to elective positions, that is where the grey area comes in.
Likely to fall on quite a number of people.
Yeah.
Yes, it will, and which means that two camps will emerge very strongly. Those who are for.
Yeah.
those who are
and those who
against.
were against.
You thought I was going to say something profound.
I was waiting for it, but then I realized
Has not
a
what,
girl can only wish.
has not what I have said fall into the category of what is profound?
It
Those who
has.
are for and those who are against.
Against.
Profundity can be simple,
It sounds nice.
Profanity.
Profundity.
Baba, not profanity.
That too can be. Of stickier messes, NHIF and private hospitals are bickering over claims. Some private hospitals are turning away patients with National Hospital Insurance Fund cover, citing unpaid bills by the national insurer, as if things couldn't get worse. They say their claims are not being honoured by NHIF, which has forced them to resort to the drastic action, with the problem persisting for months now. But NHIF insists it has suspended the services of some hospitals that failed to meet accreditation requirements and others that are under investigation for fraudulent claims. Dr. Abdi Mohammed of the London Hospital said the measures by NHIF have been going on for close to a year and they have had to turn away patients due to rejection of their cards. He's also said, we've been experiencing this with our clients for months. I don't know if it's a cost-cutting measure on the part of NHIF, but we try to handle it the best that we can. The Kenya Private Hospitals Association, Dr. Washira Gyoko, traced the problem to the reclassification of hospitals. When the National Insurance picked the report by the expert panel, which informed their decisions to pick various hospitals of their choice, it has seen us fight with them in terms of contracts and other issues. So now, the National Assembly Health Committee Chairperson Sabina Shege explained when the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Council took over the licensing and accreditation of hospitals, there had been issues with some, especially those that did not follow due process while registering. We have not received any complaints on our end. However, some hospitals did not follow what could be a pointer to their current predicament. Now, this fight, unfortunately, affects people who then walk into hospital hoping to get medical services and unfortunately are turned back.
Those two institutions just, okay, so private hospitals, they know what has happened. There's a reclassification and there's how they're recognized by the NHIF.
Right.
This is a matter that they should deal with internally.
It seems like something
You
that they
go-
can sort out very quickly.
Yes,
Yes.
come on, people, come on. Time for us to take another break. But as we do that, it appears like Malakisi is in the Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah,
I guess as Steve says, he's tuned in from Agenga in, so where are you scrolling?
sorry.
Agenga in Samia Sub-County. He's in Samia Sub-County in Busia County. Okay? He says Malakisi is a small market situated in Teso North Sub-County, Busia County. They have a BAT company and Kolanya High School is also there. It's in Busia County and it is in Teso North Sub-County.
You know, Busia actually does border Bungoma.
Tell us what Edwin
You
says.
cannot be in a border. You are in one county or the other.
No, I'd actually just
Okay,
begun
sorry.
my statement.
sorry.
And I was
That-
going
no,
to
you,
say-
you don't before you come in. Daniel Osiemondiere says Malakisi is a place in Bungoma. It means gold. Edwin Okoti says Malakisi is a small trading center that sits on the border of Bungoma and Busia counties. It came into being due to tobacco farming. Specifically, it's in Bungoma County, but adjacent Kolanya School is in Busia County. Is Malakisi in Bungoma? Is Malakisi in Busia?
But we
Actually,
know
Where
that
is
there's
Malakisi?
Kolanya Boys School, High
let me-
School.
Let me tell you something. There are towns, there are names of towns that are shared by different communities.
Like how you have Busia in Uganda and you have Busia in Kenya.
Yes,
Voila.
yes. It's
Like
just that
Malaba as
this
well.
happens to be a smaller geographical area. That is why perhaps it isn't being allowed to have that particular peculiarity. But the truth is this, I have never been there, so I don't know.
Another
Somebody please tell us.
profundity.
Yes.
So
What I do
all we
know-
are hearing so far is that Malakisi is a trading center.
And there's a
So
Kolanya
just like you
Boys High
said,
School next to
it's a
it.
trading center.
And there's a boys' school near there.
And there's a boys'
And the
school
boys'
near
school is
there.
actually a well-known boys' school.
All right.
Yes.
Now, does the border cut across Malakisi Trading Center? Or is Malakisi in Busia?
Let
or
me
is
explain.
Malakisi in
Eric,
Bungoma?
let me explain something here. This issue of borders, I think, is often, it resides very strongly in the minds of national administrators and probably now county administrators. The people who live there, that border might as well not exist.
But they know where they vote. So it's very clear now.
My friend, this
They
is where
know.
now the issue comes in.
Is our governor the Bungoma governor or is our governor the Busia
If you're at the
governor?
border, is what suits you.
Today it can be the Bungoma.
It-
Tomorrow it can be the
it is
Busia.
what suits you. It's what suits you. And to understand this, look at the wildebeest migration. You think they know they're in Kenya?
Them they're eating grass.
I
and
have a
giving
feeling
birth.
that Malakisi is clearly in one of these. It's not in both.
Let me tell you
So
something.
somebody
They-
who knows, someone in Malakisi should call
There are
us.
trading centers that can be claimed by both or can be shared by both. This is all I'm trying to tell you. It is possible and it happens. So, those from Busia may say it is there, those from Bungoma may say it is there. And remember, there's this strange thing about boundaries and borders. these boundaries and borders of ours also like changing from time to time, depending on which constituency is being carved out at what time, for what purposes, and for what reasons. So, we now know it's in Western Kenya. We have established it is near Malanya Boys.
Kolanya.
Yes.
Kolanya.
Did I say Kolanya or
I
Malanya?
said Molanya.
Kolanya.
Yeah.
And there's
forgive
a
me.
trading
And there's
center,
tobacco.
market
There's
something.
tobacco growing.
Growing there, and there's a trading center. We've established that. Let's move along.
Yeah. No, someone in Malakisi, please tell us. Do you,
You know,
belong
Eric's
to
not gonna
Busia
let this
or
one go to
Bungoma?
rest.
Eric is stuck
They
on
got
that
to
one.
know. Can't be in the Bermuda Triangle.
But we know where the Bermuda Triangle is.
It is, eh? We do.
Yes. The geographical area is known. Yes. That's why it has the name Bermuda Triangle.
It's in Bermuda.
It's near Bermuda.
11 minutes to 7. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Time for a break.
Spice FM, Malindi. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
So remember, there's a new product by the new KCC, and this is the Gold Crown lactose-free milk with the new KCC. This is very good for people who are lactose intolerant because they have removed this sugar called lactose from the milk and ensured that now that your body is not able to produce this enzyme called lactase, then it's going to be safe for you to consume this particular milk. Like we said yesterday, it can be consumed by everybody, even those who are okay with lactose. It's not ati dawa ya watu wa maziwa. No, it's free for everyone, but very, very good solution now for people who are lactose intolerant.
Right.
We'll be speaking to an expert on gastrology later this morning. But here's the thing. This particular Gold Crown lactose-free milk is apparently slightly sweeter than the ordinary milk. And this is because of why, City?
I don't know really. Because I have not only read about it, but I've experienced the same. So I'm not sure whether it is my taste buds. Because I had to taste this milk.
Yeah.
It actually does taste.
Sweeter.
Not only that, it tastes creamier. You know, if you've drunk
There's
milk.
an answer to that.
Yes, if you've drunk milk that comes, well, all milk comes from, what I'm trying to say is it's milked that morning, it's boiled, it's cooled. The taste that you get from that particular milk is the same sort of taste that I have experienced with
With
this.
the lactose.
Yes, now it may be that my taste buds have been affected by chronology. There's that little detail, but it does taste sweeter.
So it's
You
like
know,
fresh
what
from the
makes
cow.
this milk lactose-free is because what KCC has done is they have gone ahead to break down the lactose sugar
Yes.
in that milk. So breaking down the lactose in the milk means that the glucose taste stands out.
So when you break it down, the taste stands out.
Yep. You've broken down that lactose in the milk, and now the glucose taste stands out. So it tastes sweeter because that sugar has been broken down.
So thinking about it purely as a layman, broken down means it's now in smaller fragments, and so it can spread more in the milk. All right. That doesn't sound like a very scientific explanation, but it does taste sweeter.
There you go. We'll be awarding some 2 winners today, but we will do that when we hear from the expert who calls in, and then we'll decide what's the question to ask then out of the conversation with our expert. Keep it right here. Edwin Okoti has even dropped in a map and said, there you go.
Sorting out your problem
What
today,
is it?
Eric.
Okay. It's okay. So another story here. There's a very, very interesting story that is in the nation. Let me just get it. There's a gentleman called Kovalenko Henadi. Kovalenko Henadi is a Ukrainian person. He had hoped to make billions of shillings from exporting 350 kilograms of gold mined in the DRC. Then, that gold vanished in Nairobi, while at the hands of a security company that he had entrusted the gold to export to a refinery in Dubai. Long and short of this story is that this gentleman has now taken this case to court. But this is what happened. It shows that Mr. Henadi had paid for the gold in Uganda, and it was authenticated by the Department of Mines and Geology in Nairobi before it was airlifted into the hands of two Kenyan companies. One company is called Afri Solutions Limited, which was to handle the clearing, and Bricks Security, which was to secure the gold at a strong room in Kileleshwa. In total, this gentleman had parted with a paltry 900 million shillings to brokers and traders, and he was to make a windfall of hundreds of millions more until the gold disappeared. What happened? So he was introduced to the trade by an acquaintance called Nduh Okoh. He bought the gold nuggets from a Ugandan company identified as Dam Gemstones Exports Limited. Trouble started when the Uganda company failed to ship the consignment to Dubai because the Ukrainian had not applied for what they were calling a non-criminal certificate. So they told him there's something that you need. There's something called a non-criminal certificate, okay? To get that, he was told, just pay some 65 million shillings.
Oh, okay.
He paid 65 million shillings to the Ugandan man named John Gatete. Still, the consignment was never sent to Dubai despite paying. Due to the delay in the shipment, he was told some of these certificates had now expired. He was told to pay an extra 38 million shillings. He hired a private jet 3 times for his contacts to fly the shipment. Nothing. Soon, the contact, Nduh Okoh, was apparently arrested in Entebbe, Uganda for money laundering. And now they told him, for us to secure the release of Mr. Nduh Okoh, can you send us some cash? Just small money to sort out. How much? 11 million. Okay, he sent
just
11
small
million.
running around money.
It's small running. So far he has done 65 million.
Then 38 million.
38 million. Now 11 million to have the man released. This is the time that he was advised by Okoh to fly the consignment to Kenya because Kenya is friendlier. Okoh introduced the Ukrainian to the Nairobi company, Afri Solutions Limited. And after the gold was brought to Nairobi, it was tested again. He was told, look, just to confirm that this is your pure gold. It was tested and it was found to be pure. He was told that he'd be issued with a certificate at no cost, and he left to Ukraine together with his business partner. He tells the court that on reaching Ukraine, this gentleman, one of the directors of Afri Solutions called Joseph Kimo, who is also being sued in court, sent him a message saying they require 100 million shillings for the certificate.
The same certificate which had
Which
cost,
he paid
You see, now
65
this one
million.
is in Kenya. That was Uganda issues.
and it was in Uganda shillings.
Shillings of Kenya shillings, equivalents.
65
We're talking
million.
about equivalents of Kenya shillings.
All these shilling matters are equivalent.
Kenya shillings equivalents.
Hey.
100 million shillings so that you can get the certificate. He was told then an extra 30 million shillings, and then the consignment will be shipped in
Sorry.
3 days.
What's the value?
Where
what
is
was-
this consignment?
Just wait. What is the value of this gold?
The value?
Do they mention it? Yes.
They don't mention the value. He was expecting to make
Must
some
be something
serious,
if you're willing to fork
some
out 100
serious
million
cash.
shillings every now and then.
It is 350 kilos of pure gold.
Or more small thing. Sorry. Where is this gold?
By this time,
No, is it
gold
Dubai?
left Uganda, gold came to Kenya. He was shown the gold. Then he was told, let's pick some samples, all right? Let's test. See? Pure gold. Very good. It is authentic gold. This is not fake gold, my brother. Pure gold. So now let's take it in that strong room, which is run by this security company. And these guys called Afri Solutions are going to deal with them.
To move gold within Kenya, 100 million.
Certificate. No, this is just for
Certificate
to get a
move it in,
certificate.
and it's already here.
No, for you to ship it out. You see, we need to ship it out to Dubai. The end goal of this gentleman is to get his gold to Dubai, to a refinery in Dubai.
Okay.
So he
Now I
pays
understand.
100 million. Okay? Then he's sold another 30 million, and the consignment will be shipped within 3 days. These guys flew back to Nairobi and paid more money, 12 million shillings, and they were allowed to take samples of the nuggets for testing. That you want to go with some of, just kidogo of it to go and test? No. 12 million. Gone. They were also given 8 kilos of gold nuggets to keep in their hotel. So they were told, Sawa, you've paid 8 million, just take these 8 kilos, go with it to your hotel. That night, in their hotel, police raid. Why are you holding gold illegally? Kenya. So after this, they realized they could have been defrauded.
Really? Only after this? Only after the police show up in your hotel is when you think, hold on a minute, is there a problem?
Buana.
In which paper is this reported?
Nation, page 11.
Okay.
By John Kabau, very good investigative editor at The Nation. So it emerges that later, when the police raided Afri Solutions Limited, they reported that they found some fake gold.
Where? Okay.
Let's just say, gold vanished.
Money
You have paid
gone.
over 900 M.
And there's no Dubai. There's no gold that's going to no Dubai. If anything, you've been arrested with gold in the country illegally.
Believe me, the same people who sorted out this matter for you can sort out their matter of arrest.
Mamma mia.
But now it won't be the same cause. That's just a certificate. Now, when it comes to the police, no, they're not alone. There are others.
All right.
Why couldn't that gold just move from wherever it was straight to Dubai?
Was there gold?
It needs clearance. Good morning. It's 7 o'clock.
Spice up your life. Spice FM. Nakuru.
Oh, the gods of Mombasa Road today have woken up and they're smiling because traffic on Mombasa Road today is non-existent. It's fantastic. Only 35 minutes for some folks from Kitengela to the Nairobi CBD. Can we all say hallelujah? It's looking pretty good on Mombasa Road today. We don't have much in terms of problems. Hope it remains that way for at least the major part of this morning. Don't come and say I didn't tell you. So, where we will have a problem today is out of the city, and you're being advised to use Limuru Road if you're heading out west for the weekend, because there's already a build-up of traffic right around Maimahiu in that area, and it's bumper to bumper, kilometers of traffic already at 7 o'clock. Okay, so Mombasa Road is looking pretty good. It's looking good on Thika Road as well as trying to get into the CBD. It looks like it's going to be a good Friday today, and people who were ready for an hour or two in traffic, looks like only 30 minutes this morning, so it's good. Good things. Spice FMKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. If you get stuck somewhere or if you find a route, whereby you can enjoy the breeze and look at the sunshine, let us know that too. Text us on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Nduh Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
2.5 minutes after 7. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. C.T. Muga Wamashati. Lovely shot today.
Thank you, sir.
There's a photo that our main social media, Brian Amulioto, had taken a couple of days ago, and he's posted it now on social media. Hey. Dorcas Kamoto, our listener in Malindi, says, hey, C.T. Wamashati, that pose. Now you call now C.T. Wamashati and Mapose. C.T. Mapose. That pose makes you look 25.
Hey, City's even blushing.
No, it's not blushing.
John, show that for sure.
It's the arithmetic. It's the arithmetic that I'm thinking about. I know what my age is. And then you want to make it what? 35?
25.
25.
25.
Yani unakata nusu, then unatoa ingine. Well, well.
Let's start with today's proverb.
If a man wants to grow a long tooth, he should have a lip to cover it. A long tooth, considered ungainly by some. But we'll look at it in greater detail later.
All right. So let's talk about education. Schools reopened, grade 4, standard 8, form 4 on Monday. Where are we now?
Sure. So schools opened on Monday, and when this happened, coming Monday, Tuesday, we saw that about 50% of these students had reported, of the learners had reported to school, right? It was that 90% of the form 4, of the grade, of the class 8 students had reported, about 50% of grade 4, and then about 43% of class 8, of form 4, had reported across the country. And then still citing many, many issues, and still continues to be those issues when we come to Friday, whereby many are reporting that still they don't have running water, they don't have access to the protective materials such as masks. And what has happened with that is that some children, some learners have been sent home because they didn't have this. And so they will not be able to come back to school until they have that protective equipment. Now, schools also are administering the test for the grade 4s come Monday. And it would seem that according to the Kenya National Examinations Council, this test will take place on Monday. Whereas some students have still not gone back to school. And it still continues to pose a problem. Many parents are still saying they will not send their children back to school because either one, they cannot afford it, or two, they are still worried about their children contracting COVID-19. And not comfortable that schools have put in adequate measures to go ahead and mitigate against any kind of infection. Now, we've got to look at it that many schools were not ready. Many schools did not do what was necessary to have been done to bring students back to school. But it seems as if this ball has just been rolling down the hill and continues to roll. Everybody just has continued doing what they started doing on Monday. Things have not gotten any better. Neither have they improved. We also saw some interesting pictures coming out of different parts of the country where we had children sitting on the floor to maintain social distancing, whereby there were not enough desks. So it seems that there are many gaps. And if these are all being used to then fuel the decision as to whether other classes then will open and send children back to school in the coming weeks, it would seem that there's a pretty daunting image that is being painted right now in terms of what would actually happen. It doesn't bode well either, because now there, again, as of yesterday and the day before, still a number of parents with the rising cases of COVID infections in the country, 604 the day before yesterday, 602 yesterday, and they're saying, you see, we have more cases coming into the country. Why then would I, in my right mind, send my child back to school? So if we look at the situation, schools opened on Monday. Learning has resumed. Some schools seem to have a good handle on it. A lot of schools seem to just, are going with the flow, regardless of, whatever that flow is, are going with it. And then others are still, and we do have a number of schools that did close and have not opened until date, and quite a number of parents who have not been able to send their children back to school for many reasons. The debate continues, whereby the CS Ministry of Health did ask school heads and principals, private institutions as well, to take into consideration the fact that some parents would not be able to pay school fees. And then we had the rebuttal from schools 2 days after that when they said, you know what, that sounds great, but then we have some parents who are coming with nothing. What are we supposed to do? It continues to be an issue, and one that cannot be ignored, because some children have been sent back home because of school fees. And with this test coming up on Monday, they're really wondering what they're going to do. But the situation that it was not planned for properly, we went into this term, and it seems as if we're just going along with it. Whatever comes, we go along with it, and hopefully it snowballs into positive results. That's what it looks like. Doesn't sound too exciting or too encouraging, but that's the situation.
It is a situation, and I think the sooner we accept the situation for what it is, the sooner we'll be able to come up with realistic solutions. So, what are the pillars of this reality that we are facing? One, the ministry seems to be in a gridlock. Two, many parents don't seem to know what to do, simply because The circumstances that made it possible for them to enable their children to go to school have changed, some irreversibly.
Or they don't exist anymore.
Exactly. 3, there is a health problem that COVID presents. Okay. 4, many schools, just by their very nature, are not able to meet the basic requirements for ensuring that students are actually safe, health-wise, within the premises of the school.
Right.
Now, there may be other realities that I haven't mentioned, but for me, those 4 stand out.
Yeah.
Now, if you take these things as a given, what then must we do? You can't ask children to carry water from home to go to school. No. The matter of the face mask, that one seems to be an issue that many people consider to be a non-issue. Schools within town, schools that house the sort of students whose parents have means, will come to school with masks. Okay? But, talking of solutions, the Business Daily reported yesterday that Equity Bank has come up with a package. This package they arrived at after coming to an understanding with those who manage the Private Schools Association. Monies that can help either kickstart some of these private schools back into the operation that they had before, or those that seem to have been unable. So when we spoke to one, Mr. It was Ndoro, right?
Yes, Mr. Ndoro.
Yes, he mentioned that such an arrangement was there. Now, yesterday, Equity Bank came out clearly and said, yes, they do have such an arrangement, and they want to help schools come up. But it's specific. Now, the details of what it is that they, because you must have a minimum criteria for actually accessing this.
Yeah.
Yeah, those details were not very clear. Yes. I'm not saying they were not mentioned, I'm just saying they're not very clear. Because until and unless people have tried to access it and then have accessed it, this SS, it may not be very easy to understand how effective this clearly lovely program will actually work out.
One other reality, though, is that there are very many learners who've gone back to school.
Yes, it's a reality.
Yeah.
And the number of learners who reported to school on Monday versus those that are reporting to school this morning on Friday has increased.
Increased, for sure.
It keeps increasing.
So it keeps increasing. And then the other reality is that the learners themselves many of them are pretty excited at going back to school,
Yes.
at whatever is happening in school. The other reality, even from Spot Check, in all these reports, and even talking to people who have learners going back to school, they'll tell you these kids are playing. The issue of saying that we're going to reduce the number of the social distancing and all that activities that require contact, that is not an issue at all when they get to school. They're playing as normal. They're doing everything as normal. So some of these realities are there. So as we look at going forward, we must then, just like City, you're saying, we must accept the reality that we are where we are. Schools have reopened. Learners are going back to school. Children will be children, especially those in grade 4 will, at very many occasions, forget about the face mask. Or even if they remember, sometimes they'll come and say, I dropped the face mask at some point. I had to go and look for it. There'll be all those cases. Reality of things. And reality of things is that people are sending the kids back to school. So now what do we do? How do we then ensure that as kids are going to school and this learning is happening, then we can support them the best way we can? Because I'm getting to a point where we have had this conversation and, many people have come and expressed opposition to the reopening of schools. Many have said no, and then there are those very many who have said, open schools. Let the children go back to school. After all, they're here at home. They're playing with their peers in the village, in the estates. They're playing with their peers. So let them go back to school. Learning is starting. Assessment is happening. And the assessment here is just to see
where you are
vis-a-vis where we left you. And also it is exposing quite some huge inequalities. If you talk about those schools that are near the lakes that are now swollen, those schools are submerged. So kids have gone to neighboring schools. Those schools are now crowded. If you talk about, like you said, those in the urban areas or those who come from families that are able to afford a face mask, a new face mask every day, even if you come back home without a face mask, tomorrow you'll go with a new face mask. There are those many schools where children don't even know where they can get a face mask from. So these inequalities are emerging. This is where we are.
And the inequality is actually a reality of what we now face. And in fact, that inequality has actually increased. It's one of the things that COVID has definitely done. It has increased the visibility or the optics of that inequality, where people who previously thought that they were able to do certain things now are clearly unable to do so. And of course, with children going back to school, that particular difference, it becomes even more obvious. It's patently obvious. It's glaringly so. Now, we are in a situation which is akin to a death struggle here, because it is important that children go back to school. It is important that a solution is found outside the boundaries of the normal solutions that we normally prefer in such situations. It's called lateral thinking. Forget this. You see, in the absence of a solution that can actually be worked on, edicts are thrown at parents or the citizenry. You must do this, you must do this. Okay, fine, we must. But let's tamper this with a little reality of what else we should be able to do. Now, remember when we're talking about keeping employees at the workplace, we said the government has a very important role and this is something they can do. Now, this is a catch-22 for the government. The government wants to raise revenue to ensure that its activities continue.
Yeah.
At the same time, the government needs to encourage its people to go back to work. And the government can do this because the government has the tools to ensure, whether it's a rebate, whether it's reducing taxes, whether it's giving people a tax holiday, whatever it is, there is a great deal the government can do. And it's the same thing the government can do for schools. Now, unfortunately, in the two instances where the government has declared that they have put out money to help, say, for instance, the service industry, schools, to fight off the menace that has come with COVID, the one consistent reality is that many people don't seem to have either experienced the influx of this money. So the changes that were thought would come about are not coming about as fast and as furiously as they could.
Anticipated.
Yes. And this is something that only the government can do. There are things that the citizenry can do. There are things that owners of schools can do, managers of schools can do, but there are certain things that only the government can do. So, if this is to be achieved, if the government is seen to do what it can do, and it's clear, it's being done, and you can experience it, when you call upon the others to do their bit, it then becomes easier.
But somebody's got to start and do it.
And all of us, yes, everyone must do their bit.
Yeah.
But to expect that one group will do their bit and the other doesn't quite meet them halfway or a quarter way or a third way, it won't work.
It's not going to work.
No.
And the thing is, we can say that, you get back into the school system, everybody goes back to school. But what you're going to have is that you're going to have a disjointed, depressed system. It's not going to be functioning in the manner in which it's going to function. And we must look at this, if possible, aside of COVID. If possible, through this. I mean, I know the situation in which we are in now, especially as concerns schooling, COVID has played a major role in getting us where we are right now, right? School out for 7 months, etc. Going back, cannot go back in the manner in which we ought to. But I'm saying that it would seem as if things have been hobbling anyway. Because this matter of not having enough desks, this matter of not having the right amenities in a school, the matter of not being able to distribute resources properly did not come about as a result of COVID. It would seem to me that it has shown what has been ailing the sector, what has been ailing the system before that. So now, even if you remove the COVID, there's still a problem. And if you're talking about the running of a system smoothly, you can't have it, what's supposed to be moving on 4 legs, hobbling on 3. So yes, everybody is ready to go back to school. Everybody's been touting and preaching the same sermon. We're ready to go back. We've been able to do it, and we're doing our part. But if you look at the whole picture, truly, it's not working the way in which it's supposed to work. And this is with 3 classes having gone back to school. 3. Grade 4, Form 4, and Class 8. Now, it has been said that you want to add in the rest of the classes to this entire mix. And I shudder to think about what is going to happen when that comes about. I really do. Because
the answer is very simple, and we've said this here very many times. You're on your own. It's as basic as that. When you talk about all these things, are private schools, are schools being supported? So public schools and what kind of support they are getting, how much money have public schools received to ensure that they are able to provide running water for their pupils? How much have public schools been supported to ensure that they can then offer this physical distancing, even if it's creating temporary structures so that you can then have classrooms that are spilling over into other areas? Any support that has come there? Absolutely none.
Nothing.
Let's look at this particular schools. There's a story on page 6 of The Standard, which is looking at Lake Baringo Mixed Secondary School, which used to be a school. Now it's a shell underwater. And it's saying at least 39 schools in Baringo County, 39 in Baringo County are yet to reopen because they've been marooned following the swelling of lakes Baringo and Bogoria. As a result, stranded learners have now been transferred to nearer schools that were spared the flooding, creating a different problem, that of learners crowding at a time that social distancing is the emphasis of the Ministry of Education. 12 primary schools, 5 secondary, 22 early childhood institutions have been submerged. Plans by the national and county governments to rehabilitate these institutions have hit a snag as there is no end in sight to the lake's swelling. That is one. Another one, in The Nation, page 7, it talks about schools reopening exposing country's huge inequality gap. It talks about learners from Kaduriri Primary School in Embu County, for example, who will remain in school longer because they were turned away on Monday as their school has no toilets.
Wait. Was this school built over this COVID period?
Nope.
It wasn't. This is what I'm saying. It was in existence before.
There were toilets in very many of these, and you've seen in the reports, there are toilets. And then over this 10 months or so, these toilets have basically just become dilapidated. They were poor pit latrines. Those poor pit latrines have now even become...
They've just gone into complete disuse.
Complete disuse. And then we cannot therefore say that there are toilets. They are completely unsafe for use by young learners.
Which means they were unsafe even before.
Yes. So this school in Embu, the learners were turned away because they were told, guys, we don't have toilets. Just go back home. When I say you're on your own, this is what I mean. There's a director of education in this sub-county, in this county, who during this time was earning a salary, who during this time was not expected to be on leave, right? What was it that they were doing to ensure that these schools remain in proper condition, with even the school heads? So when the issue of reopening starts now being mulled by the ministry headquarters, you're already thinking, all right, now the schools in my area, how safe are they? What have you done? You're talking about the government doing anything? We're on your own. So we have opened. Now that's why I said these are our realities. What are we going to do to live with these realities? Local communities, what can we do? Just kids, we want our kids to go back to school.
But
what
unfortunately, unfortunately, look at it. When you throw things into the hands of people who are already in a depressed state, in whichever way you want to look at it, what do you think the response is going to be? They're not going to throw themselves into the battle ring and be fighting with you in terms of, okay, so you're going to do this, waiting for you to do it. No. They're going to sit in the position where they are and continue as they have been continuing. Come on. We can talk about people being on their own, but what do you really expect people to do? How much further or how much leaner through the grinder do you expect them to go?
Just more.
When it has already gotten them to the point whereby they say, okay, we really don't know how we're going to do anything about this. But by virtue of the fact that you've told us to come back to school, we are going to come. And then on top of that, we can't. So when you say on your own, then let me be on my own in my house.
Facilitate your child's learning, because that is one thing that you want to make sure that you're doing. You want to make sure that your child is learning. Your child is going to school, right? As a parent, you have a personal responsibility. And it's a high responsibility. So even if you say that, let's stay at home, you, at the back of your mind, you know that what is happening to this child is that they're missing out on an education, and you want them to have an education.
If you want to look at this discussion and discuss it as broadly as you possibly can, the question that you ask yourself, let's go back a little into history and talk about unemployment. Because we are blaming unemployment or lack of opportunity for the inability of many parents to be able to meet the needs that their households have, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that has been documented by those who study these things, whether they're sociologists, whether they're anthropologists, whether they're economists, is that one of the patent and obvious outcomes of corruption is this. It eats into the possibilities of opportunity. So money that could have gone on to do certain things that would guarantee an activation or a propagation of economic activity is actually killed because that money never actually ever gets there. It ends up in the hands of a few people. So the opportunity, forget the money, the opportunity is what suffers real death, because in the absence of opportunity, this thing that we're discussing here becomes not just a reality that is passing away, but it becomes a constant reality. So that poverty becomes entrenched as a norm. It shouldn't be. This is the thing. It should not be.
Yeah.
Because you're not talking about people who are unable to work, people who don't have the skills, people who don't have the willingness to work. No. You're talking about opportunities being denied them. Now, this is the real problem. Now, if the government is accustomed to talking about opportunities, the billions, I have to get these figures right, that were put into the service industry and given to public schools, if that money actually saw the light of day, in my mind, that would be an opportunity. Meaning what? If schools have money, vendors, people who supply the school with all sorts of things,
also have money.
Precisely. These people are just ordinary citizens like everybody else. They also have children. And you'll find usually they have a relationship with that school. That is why they're even able to have that business relationship with the school. Now, you say this discussion cannot go on further. Actually, I would argue that this discussion has just begun.
No, I think absolutely it can go further. Absolutely.
It has just begun because
Just begun.
it has just begun.
Time for us to take a break at 25 minutes after 7. This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting on Spice FM, on KTN Home and online. We're to take a look at the weather and the roads, and then we'll be back. So, and we want you to also participate and tell us how the experience has been for the learners and the parents, and also the teachers in this first week of schools reopening. What is happening on the ground? What's the situation on the ground? 0719 012 600 or 40127. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice 24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Mimi siwezi kunywa chai kama haina maziwa. Hiyo si chai hata. So when it started giving me stomach problems, nilijikaza tu. But my wife realized I was struggling and decided to get me some alternatives. My friend, I tried all those plant-based substitutes. Name them. Let me tell you, there is nothing that tastes as good as real cow's milk. So when I heard Gold Crown has lactose-free version of the real thing, I had to try. I was amazed. It is real cow's milk, kweli kweli, but without any of the discomfort. Asante Gold Crown.
Try Gold Crown lactose-free milk today to enjoy the richness of all-natural milk without the discomfort of indigestion. 100% cow's milk, 100% lactose-free. Easy to digest.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
Seems slightly overcast in some parts of the city today. At this time, partly cloudy conditions will go through most of the morning into rainy conditions later, highs of 27. Njeri experiencing light rain showers this morning at 15, going to highs of 25. Nakuru clear skies and sunny conditions at 14, going to highs of 25 with a chance of rains later. It's mostly cloudy in Eldoret at 14, going to highs of 22. 28 will be the high in Kisumu with some rains expected going into the weekend. And Kakamega looks like a wet weekend as well with thunderstorms and rain all about, highs of 25 and lows of 26. It's mostly cloudy in Mombasa at 26 degrees, going to highs of 30 with a chance of showers later on. Looks like partly cloudy conditions in Malindi at 27 degrees, highs of 29 and lows of 25. It's mostly sunny in Kampala at 18 degrees, highs of 25. Dar es Salaam now is foggy this morning at 24, going to highs of 30 and a chance of rains later on. Johannesburg is mostly sunny this morning at 15. The high will be 30 and lows of 14 and sunny conditions all through into the weekend. It's mostly cloudy at the moment in Lagos at 30. 30 will be the high and lows of 23.
.9 Spice FM, Mombasa.
Okay, guys,
Traffic.
things seem to have slowed down a little bit on Thika Road. Utali towards Muthaiga, moving slowly. It's not moving too slowly, but it's moving all the same. Outer Ring this morning also is having a few problems here and there, a bit of a clog up around that area, but it shouldn't be too bad as it gets you either towards the city or in the opposite direction. Mombasa Road behaving swimmingly well this morning, not too much in terms of drama when it comes to traffic. Unless that has changed over the last half hour, let us know. But it looks like everybody's having a good time on Mombasa Road. Where you will not be having a jolly old time this morning is outskirts of the city. As you headed west, my Mahu, that road is backed up for kilometers. 'Tis Friday, everybody's moving out of the city for the weekend. You can use Limuru Road, however. You shouldn't have too much of a problem getting out that way. But just to let you know that is what lies ahead. Spice FMKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. If you're stuck somewhere, let us know, or if you've given information that we just don't have just yet. 40127 is the text line. Let us also know where you might be stuck.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice
All right, the
FM,
conversation continues.
Nairobi.
This is the Situation Room. In the room is CT Muga, Nduh Okoh, and Eric Latiff. 5 days. This is the 5th day since the reopening of schools on Monday. So what's the situation on the ground? How has it been? We know that there's some public schools, of course, in other parts of the country that have not been able to reopen because of various factors. Among them, schools are submerged in water. Other schools don't have toilets. But others have really reopened, and we have seen many images from across the country of kids playing, kids back in school. The number of pupils and learners who are reporting back to school has been increasing since Monday. Those that will be reporting today will definitely be more than those that reported to school yesterday. But at the same time, it's bringing out the very many issues and concerns that are yet to be addressed. Concerns about safety, concerns about the management of the schools and the learners in that school environment, with the complete reality or understanding that we still have COVID-19 spreading in the community.
That's it. And children coming to school, and especially for public schools, where they are going back most times by public transport, that has been an issue that was raised. We saw that yesterday and today as well, that you don't really have control of what they do when they're outside of school. And this is another issue. We can't forget what the Ministry of Health said a couple of days ago, whereby we see rising cases, that also in tandem with the Ministry of Health, that they should not shy away from the possibility of schools being closed again. Even after the reopening has occurred, because of the rising cases that have been seen. Now, there was a little bit of a debate yesterday, and it was that, so really, what does the rising number of COVID-19 cases in the country have to do with schools then having been opened, and then now you want to connect the two and say that schools then should close if you see more numbers rising, and then maintaining that number over time. So having trouble making the connection between the two. It also was on the same day where this new report came out, where it said that children are actually super spreaders of infection. It could be information that we knew before, but then looking at COVID and its makeup, saying that children in specific spaces over a prolonged period of time actually are super spreaders, by virtue of the fact that them being in one place. I mean, Eric talked about the fact that everybody's playing as normal.
Yep.
You're not going to stop people from being in the playground. The same way you can't control that when children are playing together is the same way you cannot control their movements when they leave school. You don't know where they're going. You don't know who they've come in contact with. You don't know where they were when they were on the transport going back home and coming to school, such and such. All right. So these are the measures that now are being asked to take care of and look at and say, you know what, we might get to the point whereby the cases have started to increase again. And we're saying, when you have this group of people who would be able to spread this thing even more than anybody else, then you want to keep them again back in a confined space. So looking at the connection between that, it is a reality. It is something that we've been forewarned about that could happen. We've seen this happen in other countries, and even with the announcements that we've seen coming out of the UK and France and such yesterday. Okay, I mean, one would say yes, there are many more cases in those countries, but the principle remains the same. When you see the heightened number of cases, then where you've opened up institutions like this, you want to close them again.
What are you saying? Are you saying that, because you sound like you're very apprehensive about this reopening school business?
Yeah, I have been. I've never hit it.
You want schools to remain shut?
No.
You want kids to go back to...
No. I'm saying that it would have been fantastic if we had made sure that measures having been announced and having been put in place to make sure that people were at least safer. It doesn't help either. It kind of like pours a bucket of cold water on all of this when you see that the week after schools have been opened, that you start to see these rising levels or rising number of cases of COVID infections in the country.
Okay. So what would you like to see? Because we are where we are. Schools have reopened. Children are playing. And the reality is, even before school reopened last week, these kids, it's only those that were, further apart. Kids in the estates, in the villages, they have been mingling. They've been playing. So the only thing that we are adding here is that we are saying, okay, so more and more of you are now meeting in this classroom.
Yeah, you're bringing them all together. That's what you're doing, essentially.
That's all you're doing. So it hasn't happened. So yes, we have not been able to adequately address the issues of safety, of the social distance in classrooms, of social distance when they're playing. We haven't been able to adequately address the issue of sanitation and sanitization points in the schools.
With a minimum number of students in school.
Yes, we haven't.
Exactly.
So
now you're saying that there's a possibility of bringing more students into school with these inadequate measures in place. Then you want to bring in more students in school, again, with the same inadequate measures in place.
Yes.
It's a potential to be a disaster.
Not necessarily. I know I sound like I've changed my tune, but let me explain why I'm saying not necessarily. If you look at the argument that Eric put across, children have been mingling. It's not as though they've been shut in their houses and they have not been mixing. They have been. Now, you could argue that in school, in fact, the mixing is perhaps even more strategically managed than they were at home or in the estates that they live in. Because again, if you go around schools, as children are playing, they'll play even more when you allow the grade 4s. But there is an attempt at social distancing. There's an attempt at ensuring that there is safety. There is something which you couldn't guarantee, neither could you talk about.
Now there's prefecting. There's somebody who...
There's supervision.
Yeah.
Okay? It actually is there. Now, what worries me goes beyond what we are seeing and saying. What worries me is concretizing a certain class of people in our society, the poor. If this situation is not managed in a way that would actually give hope for the future, what anyone who qualifies, and I'm using this word deliberately, as poor in this country, will seem to be consigned to a certain position of life in this country indefinitely. You know, we look at the Black Lives Matter movement, we look at the suffering of the blacks in America, and we talk about systemic issues, the conservatives' perspective of what inner cities should be, blaming the victim for the problem that the victim is in. Now, we have been making utterances and taking positions that are not very dissimilar. We are actually categorizing and segmenting our own people, our own population. These are just black and black, into certain cocoons by ensuring that certain things that could help them get out of this quagmire that they're in, the enabling environment is not adequately provided. The danger is this. There are people who, much as we say, they need to pull themselves out by their bootstraps. They don't have boots, and if they don't have boots, it means they don't have straps.
Sure.
So essentially we're saying, pull yourself up with your bare foot.
Yeah.
Okay? That, to me, is a bigger problem. You know, education is such an emotive matter in this school. Even now, in this country, yes. Even as we speak now, the truth of the matter is that very many families believe that the education of their child is what will help them escape.
Get out of the situation that they're currently in.
Yes. It is not said, but it is hoped for. And it's really hoped for. And that's why every effort is put into this. But unfortunately, the guarantees for that are dwindling. Now, when the guarantees dwindle, what you're going to have is people who don't have hope. And as you correctly put it, they'll even ask why it is they're bothering taking their children to school. When that question is asked, and they look at it and balance it against other issues that they have, it is not a good position to be in. So what we are currently debating and what we are currently experiencing, something has to give here. There has to be a regurgitation of hope so that people understand that starting, children can actually go to school and be safe. It must be seen that some effort is being made. The parents will play their part. And the parents cannot play their part, those who are able to, by saying, this is the government's job. If the government isn't doing it, you're going to continue saying it's their job and they're not doing it. Do what you can, to the best that you can. Because in all honesty, even when you think you've reached the nth, as far as that matter is concerned, you can be surprised at how much more you haven't done.
Or how much more you have left to push forward.
Yes, you can be amazed. You limit yourself when you expect someone else to be doing it.
So are we saying that this regurgitation of hope is a collective thing, or must come on the parts of those who then would essentially be on their own? I mean, we've had that conversation many times where you're saying that, you know what, folks, you're on your own here. The government has done what they feel they can do. And until that point, there's nothing you will do. If you like, lie on the ground and throw yourself over hot coals or walk on nails, they're not going to do anything more beyond that. So who's responsible for this regurgitation of hope? Who?
That bit of letting the government get off scot-free, I'm actually not for. No. The government cannot say that they've done what they can do.
That's what they said.
No.
They said they built desks. They said that they...
and who has received those desks?
They said that last August, they said that they were going to...
Who has received those desks?
Let me read. They expressed optimism that by the time schools opened, that affected institutions, for example, would have been rehabilitated.
Okay.
That's just one example.
In this same
Baringo story,
please,
right?
Since they were expressing
this
optimism.
is what they told people that they would do. So this is what I'm asking. Who is
Which
responsible
school
for making
has
sure...
received desks?
Right?
Which one?
They can tell
And
me.
how many, even if
Yeah,
you
that's the thing. And that's what I'm saying. I can say, and I'm going... Look, let's... For once in this whole education conversation, let's look at the stakeholders that seem to have been ignored more than anybody else. And that's the parents, who, yes, have a responsibility to take their children to school. If you even look at what the Constitution says, the education of children is the responsibility of government and parents. Right? But it seems that in this entire process, most times the parents are not consulted. They're not asked their opinion. There is somebody who stands at the helm of an association said to be representing people in terms of their views and their thoughts, but not giving the true picture, not telling the truth as per what it really is supposed to be. So when we talk about looking at this situation, as grim as it is, some people have gone back to school just getting by, snowballing, this snowball effect of what's supposed to be. There are people who are really, really having a difficult time. So when you say, okay, we're on our own, let's see what we can do. Okay, we get to the point whereby it's so difficult, you pull up some more. If there's some hope that's supposed to be given, to make sure that even with a struggling, dilapidated system, you're trying to make sure that you make the best of it. Who is supposed to inject that hope upon which parents can pull up again and say, okay, let's try. Let's do it again, to do our part. Who's supposed to do it?
You know, you seem to be of the view that the government actually cares, isn't it?
Well, you would hope that they do. I am hoping, let's use that word again. I am hoping that the government actually does care.
What part of you're on your own aren't you understanding?
I refuse to say
be on
say
your own.
No. Well, look, I refuse to keep saying, because also then they would take on that attitude as well and say, okay, these folks know that they're on their own, so let's just leave them like that.
Let me ask, what was so difficult? Is education a devolved function? No.
It isn't.
What was so difficult in ensuring that with all the education structures that we have in this country, that this building of desks was not given to, forget to advertise, you apply. No. All these schools throughout the country have furniture. Has the government ever figured out where they get their furniture from? They have furniture. It means there are people who supply them with this furniture. Why didn't you just do what you normally did instead of coming up with this new-fangled idea, which doesn't even fangle at all, okay? That you are going to make these desks. It is the same story of the computers, the tablets, the schools being ready. It's the same story. It is because it is the same story that I am suggesting this. Even as you consider what the government ought to do, consider, knowing this is what, and it is your right to expect them to do it. Here are the options you have. Reality check. Are you going to wait for the government to do it, or are you going to ensure your children go to school? Ask yourself a very simple question. What are you going to do?
Basics.
What are you going to do? Wait for the government or let the children go to school? Will they learn less if they sit on the floor?
Probably not.
As long as they keep social distance, they're sitting on the floor. Will they learn? Yes, the answer is yes, they will learn. As it is, there are children right across this country who actually sit under trees because they don't have enough classrooms. And they sit on logs and on stones, and they learn.
In as much as that is something that you do as part of your responsibility, which you have responsibility to do to make sure that your children go to school. What I am saying is that going through that system every time, having to pull on your own socks all the time, you give that feeling or you give that position to those who are actually supposed to be doing their job, the wherewithal to think that they can get away with not doing it
But you see-
over and over and over again.
Both these
Do you know
things
how
can happen
difficult
at the
it is?
same
Do you know
time.
how
Yes, they
difficult
can.
it is going
You
to
can
be
take
to
your
pull out
children
of
to
that?
school. You can ensure that you do the best you can to give them a proper learning environment, best you can, a good learning environment. But at the same time, you are applying pressure and reminding them
You can.
that this is not my responsibility.
You can do both.
And knowing that I want a leader who then understands that you see what I'm doing, come and take over what I am doing. I am doing the job of government. Those things can happen at the same time. Because you have a learner, you have a child who deserves education. You have a child who's been sitting at home and wondering, so what happened to school? Are you saying that now I'm not going to go back to school? You have a child who entered standard 8, who entered Form 4, and they've been piling pressure on their parents, wondering, so what happens? Are you saying that I'm now going to delay my dreams? At that age, in standard 8, they're already thinking, I'm a candidate, and then I've applied to this school. I'm going
So that I can do this.
So I can do this.
Their
They
thinking
already
has actually
have-
gone to even the university level.
Yes.
At standard 8.
So they've been questioning, are you saying that now I put my dreams and ambitions on hold? So to respond to that, tell them, come back, you continue your education, you'll sit an exam next year. That will happen. But at the same time, you're looking at the government and reminding the Ministry of Education, the government, you have a responsibility. You have shucked your responsibility. And I am holding you accountable for this. At the same time, I'm holding you accountable for this.
And remember,
it's possible to do both. at the
you
same-
can. Remember, we also have political leaders whose job it is to represent us in these matters.
Yeah.
You may not be able to get to the Ministry of Education, but you can get to your politician. You can. If not as an individual, as groups. Schools have parents-teachers associations. Schools have board of management. Parents can put pressure on these people, and that pressure can be upscaled. It can. The thing is, it's not a situation that we can leave unattended and just say, well, this is what is happening. Just accept the reality. These guys don't really seem to give too much of a hoot. That we've gotten. We've understood.
That's clear.
Yeah, because
That's very clear.
Shouldn't someone even say, look, folks, we have only been able to make 2 of the 10 desks. So take the 2 desks. Silence. They should be able to say, this money which we're supposed to give you to help you with this, we don't really have it. What we have is this. Work with this. Man, school heads-
Water.
Yes.
Basics, water. Even if you say, let's call the community and tell
Yes.
them, look, guys, we need water. So for now, we have not received money. What can we do? People will donate drums. They'll say, okay, you can take this drum, take it to school. So let's find a way of these kids then going to fetch water to put water in these drums. This solution can be sought. The Ministry of Education, like we spoke to the teacher the other day, and he was telling us, in my school, we have not had anything like that. There's no water point. There's no running water in the school. The issue of face mask, it's not clear whether these kids are able even to afford these face masks. This is it. And it exposes what you were saying. It brings in the issue of a certain class of people in the country who, and you said deliberately, are poor.
Yes.
The people who are poor are the ones who, for example, belong to a primary school that does not have pit latrine
Yes.
anymore.
Yes. Or
Right.
whose students are sitting on the floor because they don't have desks.
The children of the leaders are going to these private schools, and these private schools, according to even the story by The Nation, are already telling the Ministry of Education, don't just tell us about it in grade 1, grade. We are ready to reopen the whole school. They've been pushing for the reopening of the whole schools. So Here is the story. International schools have also been allowed to reopen. Okay. So some of the schools that offer local and international curriculum, like Brookhouse in Nairobi, for instance, instructed learners and employees to go for a COVID-19 test 10 days before schools were to reopen. And then the learners must self-quarantine for those 10 days and then go to school. Okay. There's some schools that are even saying when you come back to school, you'll be issued with a kit, a safety pack containing branded face masks, sanitizer, and information on the virus. You tell me whether learners of Kaduriri Primary School ever have hope of receiving a safety
branded
pack.
safety pack.
No, Eric, you're pushing the envelope. Let's start with ever having toilets that don't break down.
Yes,
When
ever.
people- just let's start with that. Then we can
Properly
move on.
functioning toilets.
Exactly. And then that safety pack, pick one item and say if they have hope of having one item in that safety pack. That disparity is so glaring that if you actually can't see it, you may think you actually have sight, but you're actually blind.
Where it should be the other way around.
Yes.
You know what? It is on this continent, it is here that you see that private schools actually overtake public schools. Most of the people in other countries go to national schools. They believe in the national
In the
system.
public system,
They're
yeah.
in the public school system. The public school system is much better than the private system by far, even when they're not paying school fees, because it is funded, it is backed, it is supported by the government. Whereas this thing that you're talking about would have been the flip. It was that public national schools supported by the government are the ones who would be providing such things, are the ones who would make sure that even in a time of COVID when people were not in school, that there was something that they would do. The public system, the majority of even the well-to-do that in this country would take their children to private schools, take their children to public schools because the system is much better.
You know,
That is the way it is supposed to be.
What you've described is the experience of my generation.
It's the way it's supposed to
We
be.
all went to public schools. There were few private schools. Operational word, few. Everybody went to a public school. And they were good schools and everybody was happy to go to those schools.
Then what happened?
Now, see the beauty of that. If you look at the school structure, let's take, for example, the bigger towns. The planning was such that schools were often adjacent or not too far away from dwelling places. So, and they found a central place where the school could actually be based. So,
Yep.
it didn't really matter what the station of your parents was in life.
got
You would
one
go to
nearest.
school.
All of you.
Yes,
Yeah.
you'd go to school.
It would
So
be the pastor's children, the politicians'
everybody's-
children, the
doctor's
government workers,
children.
doctors' children, all of them in the same school.
Look, the children of somebody who worked for you could also go to the same school as you.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
It meant the opportunity was provided. And that's why you hear many stories that Kenyans and perhaps many Africans have of how they came from genuinely humble backgrounds, but the opportunity was provided. It existed. It existed. If the fees wasn't affordable, there was a bursary, a system which worked. Now, you see, what you've dissected is something that needs to be looked at a little closer. How did you get to the point where private schools, in terms of just the preference that parents have for it, how did they overtake public schools? Who allowed it? What happened? What you'll find is, and this was mentioned in this show some times back, the government seems to have sat back and assumed that the private schools are supposed to be playing their role.
And it's not their job.
Because there is a constant increase in the number of private schools in the
Yep.
country. There are really very many, of all cadres, high cost, middle, low, but they exist. And they still keep coming up. Because remember, we have a growing population. Now, somewhere along the line, the government seems to have decided that this particular role of expanding the education system was not their thing. In an earlier time, what would happen is communities would come up with a school. We used to call them Harambee schools. The
DB.
Yes. What the government would do at some point is take over. At some point, it might be an assisted school where the government allows teachers whom they pay to work in the school. It's called assisted then. At some point, they took it over completely. Now, what that meant was it was even an incentive to start more Harambee schools. Because you knew at some point the government would take it over. And what that meant was more opportunities for the children in that locality. That story went, wherever it is the stories go to.
Yep.
Now we have a situation where the discussion is private schools. Parents no longer even bother. They look for a private school.
It's a pity.
Yes, our churches, those that have financial might have come up with their schools. Organizations of people who want to think of a business have come up with schools as a business.
Yep.
It's a growing business in this country. But now that people cannot afford, forget the private schools, even taking their child to a public school with the barest of requirements. This is not a situation that you address with the same lame solutions that we have been dealing with from time immemorial. No. A complete rethink and a complete looking at possible solutions has to be given here. And it isn't, if it can't work yearly, then make it work half yearly. If it can't, make it work quarterly. If it can't, then make it work monthly.
It can be done.
Change the thinking completely. A little lateral thinking would be useful at this time. And not just thinking, but also implementing what that thought process has produced.
And unfortunately, the thing I think, the fighting fires at the point when they've already blown up full capacity is another problem that we've seen happen in the education system, unfortunately.
Yep.
You can't start saying that we're going to start doing something about something when a problem is already full-blown in your
Then you
face.
come with a jerry can of water and,
And
say,
you're trying
we
to-
have plans.
yeah.
In fact, what we've done
We've got
is
plans.
we've ordered for a water bowser, a fire engine to come, and it's going to come and deal with this water, this fire. Absolutely no way. We're seeing this across the country. It's time for us to take a break on KTN Home, 5 minutes to 8 o'clock. This conversation continues. It happens every morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. But we'll also be on KTN Home even for the next hour. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
And as we continue the conversation, let's remind you about the Gold Crown lactose-free milk from the new KCC. And this Gold Crown lactose-free milk, as the name suggests, is lactose-free. It's for those who are lactose intolerant. We're giving away 2 gift hampers today for two winners, 2 hampers from the new KCC. And we are asking you, why is it that this lactose-free milk tastes sweeter? Why does it taste sweeter? The other thing also that you all need to remember is how long can you keep this milk without it going bad after opening, both under refrigeration and out of the fridge. So if you are putting it under refrigeration, it can stay for 3 days. And if it's not in a refrigerator, then just 1 day. You need to consume it within 1 day after opening. Okay? It's milk is milk. In the next hour, we will speak to an expert,
Enterologist.
Say it again.
Gastroenterologist.
Gastroenterologist.
Break down the word.
Gastroenterologist.
Just.
Gastroenterologist. Okay. So we'll be speaking to him in the next hour to understand this whole issue of lactose intolerance and also the issue of being allergic to milk. So how do we conclude this conversation? We cannot conclude the conversation. I mean, the conversation continues every single day. And what it is that we want to see happening to our education sector, what do we want to see going forward? The issue of what you're saying, the disparity and increasing inequalities, this is being perpetrated by the government itself.
You know, you're asking what one should say. Stop fermenting problems you don't need.
How so?
It can't be that the government has absolutely no solutions. No. We know they're cash trapped. All that is understood. What can be done must be done. And it can't be talking. It must be talk, and it must be accompanied by some action. This the government can do.
But also at the same time, when you say can be done, must be done, it must also not just be done for the sake of doing. Like what is happening in Baringo, where very many schools are not going to be able to reopen because they are submerged in water. And then you just say, okay, so these ones are going to move to the other places. For instance, the Kampisamaki Primary School in Baringo now hosts Lake Baringo Secondary School, and Maisori Secondary School, Salbani Secondary learners are being hosted there. Lake Bogoria Girls is hosting Gambo Secondary School students. So, have you done anything to ensure that these students are actually now in a better situation? There are those that require to go to boarding. Are they getting to be able to access proper boarding? And you see already parents here and the children have really been eager to go back to school. On Tuesday, it was reported that 305 learners in these affected institutions had reported back to school. Grade 4 had 161 learners, Standard 8 had 71 learners, And Form 4 had 73 learners who had already reported back to school. So children want to go back to school.
They do.
Parents want to send their children back to school. Government says, okay, you guys just go there, squeeze yourselves.
We'll get back
You're
to
there,
you.
Squeeze yourself. And when you squeeze yourselves, forget it. Because we've seen the government do this before. The government ought not to leave it at that. Not just as saying it, come up with a solution on paper. Come up with a practical solution.
It would be nice how to see how that tool then would be applied in such a situation. That tool.
The Katul,
Yeah, it would be fantastic to see, because these are some of the things that they talked about. Coordination between school heads and using relevant information that they had gotten to make sure that some things would be mitigated and, all sorts of fancy language. But, in a situation like this, practically on the ground, what would you do?
That tool, if you look at it dispassionately, even makes sense.
It does.
But how do you operationalize
How
it?
do you practicalize it?
things
How
on
do you
paper.
do
It's
that?
called details of even these exams for next week are contained in a document called Guidelines for the Conduct of School-Based Learning Assessments.
Okay.
Everything has guidelines.
Of course it does. Even guidelines as to how to understand the guidelines.
Yes. Guidelines on this, guidelines on the other. So learners are going to be
Have they
doing this.
come up with, or should we
Primary
come-
school heads have been instructed to download the assessment tools from NEC website and make them ready a day before the start of the tests.
Repeat that again?
Download.
Yeah. I wanted to give you, I forgot, but yeah, they were sent the material. They're being sent the material today. They have to download it and have them ready by tomorrow.
That is
Sunday.
download and print.
And print
All
for
right.
the exams for Monday.
Across the country.
Primary school.
Primary schools across the country. Download, print, ensure that your students have them by that time. And these ones include the timetable, advanced instructions, the scoring guidelines, the learners' questions.
In short, figure it out.
Such as we have put it on the portal.
Find it.
Find it. This is a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. In the next hour, we cross over to Tanzania. We want to find out what's the situation like. We'll be speaking to a KTN journalist in Tanzania, Rajab Hassan. Good morning. It's now 8 o'clock.
Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM.
Yes, looking very good on Mombasa Road today. Trying to get into the CBD will not be a Herculean task, guys. So no bumper-to-bumper traffic as such. I mean, it's slow in some pockets of Mombasa Road, but generally it shouldn't take you too long to get out. Okay, Thika Road is where we had a little bit of traffic here and there. Kiambu Road also jam-packed at some points as you get onto the highway and getting to the underpass. Asking that, vehicles from Kiambu Road be given the priority to move today. Hopefully that will be done. Outside of the city heading west is where we had problems. Maimahu still backed up for kilometers this morning. It seems to be now a regular Friday occurrence. But you can use Limuru Road. That shouldn't be too much of an issue. So that's what traffic looks like this morning. Shouldn't be too terrible, guys. If you get stuck somewhere, don't hesitate to let us know. Getting into the CBD, however, from Langata Road and coming out of Westlands and Gong Road as well, not too painful. So it looks like we're going to have a good Friday. Yes. Spice FMKE or text us on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Nduh Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
All right, 2.5 minutes after 8. Welcome to the third hour of The Situation Room. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting on Spice FM. In Nairobi, 94.4. In Mombasa, we are on 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, Nakuru, 96.0, Eldoret, 96.7, Njeri, 90.9, and Malindi, 97.7. We are also live on KTN Home for the next 1 hour, and we broadcast the show as well on our digital platforms, Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and our website, spicefm.co.ke. So, in the last conversation that we were having about schools and wondering what's going to happen, David Neto says, I had to transfer my cousin to a day school due to the school fees, which is a bit expensive. I'm still trying to get back to financial stability, so I have to reorganize. And this is not just David Neto's story, it's a story by very, very many parents across the country and guardians. This is what is happening. So when the Ministry of Education says just go back to school and tells you go figure it out, they ought to remember that there are people who are doing the best they can to figure it out, but they also require some sort of assistance from the Ministry of Education in terms of what else the government can do. Okay, so in the next hour we're going to talk about Tanzania. We have promised that every Friday until the elections take place in Tanzania, we will be having a Tanzania conversation. The election is due to take place on the 28th of this month. We have a number of presidential candidates. Of course, the leading candidate is the CCM incumbent, President John Pombe Magufuli. The leading opposition candidate is the man that we spoke to last week on this show, and this is Nduh Lissu from the Chadema political party. And then we have also other candidates. What have we seen happen? We have seen, for example, Nduh Lissu at that point was serving a 7-day ban from public campaigning because the Electoral Commission had said that he'd violated the Electoral Code of Conduct by addressing non-designated campaign rallies, among other things. Of course, he argued against that, saying, I was not even given an opportunity to be heard. I was not even presented with the charges, so I don't even know what they're talking about. Okay? But as we do that, we shall be speaking to a KTN journalist who is based in Tanzania. We will be speaking to him shortly. His name is Rajab Hassan. But let's start with today's proverb from CT Muga.
Well, if we must. If a man wants to grow a long tooth, he should have a lip to cover it.
If a man wants to grow a long tooth, he should have a lip to cover it. The tooth is his. The lip is his. Why are you dictating on what a man should do when they want to grow? It's their problem. You want to grow your long tooth, you grow it.
Indeed, you should. But this is.
If you don't like it, don't look at me. It's a problem.
Is this not the beauty then of Proverbs? Because you then have an opportunity to discuss the possible permeation, the possible understanding of what that particular proverb could actually mean. What does a tooth mean? What does a lip mean in this context?
In this context, yeah. We'll be hearing that later on in the show. So Rajab Hassan joins us now on the line. Good morning, Rajab.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for speaking to us. Welcome to the Situation Room once again.
Thank you.
So, about 12 days to the election in Tanzania. We have seen very many campaign rallies being held by the incumbent President John Magufuli. We have also seen very many campaign rallies being held by the opposition candidates, including the one that appears to be like the leading opposition candidate, that is Nduh Lissu. We even saw him going to Magufuli's backyard in Geita. How has it been covering this election?
The coverage of election or those rallies was as it is like what you say earlier, that there are challenges facing almost those opposition party. His candidate Nduh Lissu was banned for 7 days with some issues, which he said that it was not a proper way to be banned. But so far to speak, the campaign is going on. But CCM, the leading party, has completely their duration for the campaign for President Magufuli to settle it down, and waiting for the people to vote in October 28. And Tundu Lissu is now currently in Lake Zone, those areas in a Lake Zone, Lake Victoria Zone, and which is northern part of Tanzania. And while he was there, we witnessed some challenges where the ferries denied. Ferry was I can say was cut short, and he didn't even use that ferry to reach his voters during this rally campaign, these rallies. And those are issues which emerged here, and the rise concern and some.
Let me ask this question.
Maybe,
would you say, for instance, that every presidential candidate in this race for the presidency in Tanzania is actually being treated fairly?
Actually, those candidates are not treated equally. And it was like that even before this campaign, because I remember.
Kwa nini kaka? Kwa nini? Because clearly you're saying they're not being treated. Sababu ni yapi? Kwa nini unasema kwamba wanaminyana,
wanabaguliwa?
Ndio. Kwa nini?
Ni kwa sababu tu ni jinsi inavyoonekana, kwa kile ambacho kinaonekana na sisi watazamaji ama journalists tunao cover these stories, we can see it. Because there is no room for the kulikuwa hakuna ule wasaa wa vyama vya upinzani kuweza kufanya siasa katika maeneo ambayo vinatoka, lakini kwa upande mmoja chama tawala CCM kilionekana kikiwa kikifanya kampeni na kikifanya shughuli zake za kisiasa za hapa na pale. Kwa hiyo nadhani hii hata wewe unaweza kukubali kwamba kama chama tawala kinaweza kufanya kampeni zake, shughuli zake za kisiasa, na wakati huo chama tawala chama pinzani kikiomba muda wa kufanya kama kile ambacho chama tawala kinafanya, wanawekewa vikwazo. Nadhani hii inatoa tafsiri kwamba hakuna usawa katika vyama hivi viwili. Lakini tukija pia kwenye wakati wa uchaguzi ulivyoanza, mwanzo kabisa chama cha Demokrasia na Maendeleo na vyama vingine vya upinzani vimesikika vikilalama kwamba wagombea wao walianguliwa kutokana na kushindwa kujaza baadhi ya fomu za kugombea aidha nafasi za ubunge ama udiwani. Lakini wakati huo hakuna hata mmoja kutoka chama cha CCM tawala hiki ambaye alionekana kushindwa kujaza hizo fomu. Hii pia inatoa tafsiri kwamba hivi vitu katika mchakato huu haya mambo hayakuwa sawa. Na tukiachana na hilo, pia tunakuja kutazama tukio la hivi karibuni ambapo Tundu Lissu alipigwa stop kwa kutokufanya siasa kampeni kwa siku 7. Na vile vile baadhi ya wabunge pia wamepata adhabu kama hizo kutoka katika chama cha Demokrasia na Maendeleo, akiwa Halima Mdee ambaye anagombea jimbo la Kawe jijini hapa Dar es Salaam. Lakini kwa upande wa chama tawala hakuna hata mmoja ambaye ameweza kupata hilo pigo la kusimamishwa kufanya kampeni katika kipindi cha siku hizo 7 ama zaidi na chini ya hapo. Na je, hii inatoa tafsiri kwamba CCM yenyewe ni sawa zaidi kuliko chama cha upinzani ama vipi? Lakini kwa mtazamo wangu mimi kama mwanahabari naweza nikasema kwamba kampeni za uchaguzi, kampeni za siasa kuelekea uchaguzi wa Oktoba 28 zimekuwa na changamoto nyingi kama ambazo nimekuwa nikizieleza hapo awali, kama baadhi ya wagombea kuwa na wasiwasi kwamba hawatendewi haki katika kile ambacho wanakifanya katika kueneza sera zao kwa wananchi, ikiwa ni harakati mojawapo na haki ya msingi kabisa kwa vyama hivi kufanya ili kupata wapiga kura ambao wataweza kuwachagua ili kupata ridhaa ya kuongoza Tanzania kwa miaka 5 ijayo.
From your general analysis, Rajab, have the campaigns been violent or have they been peaceful? Kumekuwa na matukio yote ambayo kumekuwa na vita ama mambo kama hayo?
In some point there was chaos and the violation of human rights in so part of this country, lakini tunaweza tukasema kwamba hawezi ukailinganisha kampeni za mwaka huu na za mwaka uliopita labda ama miaka iliyopita.
Kivipi?
Kampeni za mwaka huu zimekuwa naweza kusema hivi kwa sababu kampeni za mwaka huu zimekuwa na changamoto kama hizo, kuwepo na vurugu na patashika za hapa na pale, lakini huwezi kulinganisha na kampeni ambazo zilipita zilizopita katika miaka kabla ya leo, kwa sababu kama tukikumbuka katika miaka ya nyuma kumekuwa na vurugu, hata baadhi ya watu waliweza kupoteza maisha kutokana na vurugu hizo. Hata tukikumbukwa katika harakati hizo za siasa mjini Arusha, kuna baadhi ya watu waliweza kupoteza maisha kutokana na vurugu ambazo zilizuka wakati huo, lakini kwa wakati huu matukio sio mengi kama ambayo yalitokea miaka iliyopita. Kwa hiyo unaweza kusema kwa kiasi fulani at least kampeni za mwaka huu zimekuwa peaceful.
Rajab, Tundu Lissu last week said that if the results of this election don't go in a way that would be appearing to be free, that people would reject it and people would pour out into the streets to protest. Do you see that is what the situation is on the ground? Are the people of Tanzania asking, or rather, would they be ready to go out into the streets to protest if the result they're looking for is not the one that comes out?
Thank you. Frankly speaking, they are kind of people you can't determine or expect what they can do. But for this matter, it is obvious that can be possible or impossible. But the possibility to be impossible is clearly possible. That no one can go to street and do violence and do some bloodshed, demonstration, because there has more than 3 demonstrations failed. The first one was during that UKUTA, Umoja wa Katiba Tanzania, ambapo vyama vya siasa Chadema na vyama vingine viliungana na waliandaa maandamano, demonstration ambayo walipa jina UKUTA, but UKUTA was failed because Tanzanians were fear. And another demonstration was planned ilikuwa ifanyike katika maeneo ya Dar es Salaam, kushinikiza baadhi ya vitu fulani hivi, masuala ya uhuru wa kujieleza na nini, lakini maandamano hayo pia yalifeli. Na kwa kawaida tu ni kwamba baadhi ya Watanzania wana ile kitu wanasema kwamba akili za kuambiwa changanya na zako. Wengi ambao nimeweza kuzungumza nao baada ya statement hii ya Tundu Lissu kwamba there will be demonstration of bloodshed, most of them, they told me that they are not ready because they know during that time Tundu Lissu will not be there, and they will face their consequences themselves. And some of them remember how all Tanzanian police they kick it, how they use their rungus. So obviously I can say it is still a dilemma for Tanzanians whether to participate in demonstration or participate in bloodshed or whatever, any kind of violence when Tundu Lissu was not announced. will not be announced as a president.
Kwa hivyo
And I can remember, yes.
Wasema Rajab, unaona kama watu watakubali tu matokeo yatakavyotangazwa hata kama hawataingia kwenye maandamano? Tuseme hawaingii kwenye maandamano manake wanaogopa polisi watawachapa, manake wanaogopa maybe wanaweza umizwa na polisi ama wengine wao kufa. Watakubali? Watakaa nyumbani? Wakikubali watasema tu ni sawa, matokeo yametangazwa, sasa ni sawa tu, basi tuendelee? Ama watakaa nyumbani pia wakinungunika?
For experience and ni kama hivyo, kwa sababu ukija kuangalia watu ambao wanaweza wakafanya hicho ambacho Tundu Lissu anasema ni baadhi ya watu tu, na wengi wanapatikana katika visiwa vya Zanzibar, ambapo hata katika miaka iliyopita kulikuwa kuna kashikashi ambapo rais mpinzani ambaye alikuwa anashindana na chama tawala CCM kwa upande huo alishindwa. Huyu ni Maalim Seif Sharif Hamad ambaye anagombea urais kupitia ACT Wazalendo, na alivyo katika uchaguzi ule alidai ameshinda, lakini tume haikumtangaza kwamba ameshinda. Kuna baadhi ya vurugu zilitokea, lakini vile vile serikali katika wakati fulani katika kuhakikisha kwamba mambo hayo mabaya, waligawana madaraka wale watu. Huyu alipewa cheo hiki na huyu akapewa cheo kile, na mambo yakaishia hivyo. Lakini kwa Tanzania uchaguzi wa mwaka jana 2015, Edward Lowassa ambaye alikuwa ndo leading candidate wa chama cha demokrasia na maendeleo wakati huo, ambaye alikuwa akiongoza kwa wafuasi wengi na ushawishi, alijitangaza kwamba ameshinda kwa sababu aliona kwamba labda uchaguzi haukumtendea haki. Na nakumbuka hiyo hali ilipita tu kama kawaida. Hakuna mtu alioweza kufanya demonstration wala kuingia mtaani wala kuleta vurugu zozote zile. Na hivyo ndo maana naweza kusema kwamba kwa mwaka huu kama kauli ya Tundu Lissu Watanzania wamepokea kwa aina tofauti, lakini kuna ambao ni wale watu ambao wanaamini katika violence lakini most of Tanzanians they don't believe in violence to get their rights. Okay. Na hata ukimsikiliza Magufuli wakati akifunga kampeni zake alisema mtu yoyote ambaye anaonyesha ishara za kuleta vurugu na vitu kama hivyo, basi huyo mtu sio kiongozi bora. Na ikiwa ni katika ile kuenzi misingi ya muasisi wa taifa hili ambaye ni late Julius Kambarage Nyerere, ambaye mara zote amekuwa akihubiri umoja na mshikamano na alikemea sana masuala ya vurugu. Kwa hiyo ukiangalia Dr. John Pombe Magufuli ni mtu ambaye anaenzi hiyo falsafa. Kwa hiyo anatoa tu rai kwa Tanzania kwamba mtu anaendekeza ama anayehamasisha vurugu si mtu sahihi kwa taifa hili la Tanzania. Na baadhi ya maandiko mengi ya viongozi hawa ambao walianzisha taifa hili pia yanalenga hivyo. Kwa hiyo ile falsafa ambayo Watanzania wengi wamekuwa nayo, falsafa ya ujamaa na kujitegemea na upendo na amani, sidhani kama labda kwa watu wa kizazi hicho, sidhani labda kizazi hiki kipya ambacho kimekuwa miaka 90 kinaweza kikafanya hicho ambacho Tundu Lissu anasema. Lakini uwezekano wa kutokea kwa matakwa ya Tundu Lissu kidogo ni kitendawili bado, ila labda muda utasema, lakini
bado ni ndoto,
hatutarajii sana. Bado ni ndoto.
Rajab, ukiangalia katika these two candidates, the president and Tundu Lissu, and then compare with the last election, CCM and the Chadema party, would you say that Chadema has gained a little bit more ground? Would you say that CCM has regained some of the support that it had lost in the last election?
Yes, I can say yes. CCM wamepata watu ambao waliwapoteza wakati ule, kwa sababu tukija kuangalia kumekuwa kabla ya uchaguzi huu kulikuwa na wimbi kubwa sana la migration ya politician from opposition to come back to CCM. For example, this is a vivid example. Frederick Sumaye, former Prime Minister, and Frederick and Edward Lowassa, ambaye pia ni former Prime Minister, wote walihama kutoka Chadema na wakarudi CCM wakisema wamerudi nyumbani. Na wimbi hilo liliendelea kutokea kwa viongozi wengi na wanachama wengi kutoka Chama cha Demokrasia na Maendeleo na vyama vingine vya upinzani kurudi CCM, wakisema kwamba wanasapoti juhudi za Rais Daktari John Pombe Magufuli. Lakini kwa wakati huu uchaguzi tunaweza kusema kwamba ni situation ni kama 50-50, win-win, kwa sababu Tundu Lissu amerudi nchini baada ya miaka mitatu kuwa nje, baada ya kufanyiwa kunusurika jaribio la mauaji la hapo mjini Dodoma mwaka 2017. Na wakati ambapo amerudi hapa alipata wafuasi wengi, na ndio sababu ambayo huenda inaifanya Chadema kuwa talk of town hapa, kwa sababu wengi wanamsapoti, wanaamini kabisa kwamba Tundu Lissu ni muujiza unaotembea, walking miracle. na hicho ndicho ambacho kinaweza kusema kwamba pamoja na kwamba Chadema walipoteza wafuasi wengi wakati ule, lakini wakati huu wamepata baadhi ya wafuasi kutokana na muujiza ambao unatembea. Kwa hiyo naweza nikasema hivi, kati ya Chadema na CCM popularity yake na wafuasi wake wanaenda kuwa sawa. Sema tu ni kwamba chama tawala kina watu wake ambao ni chama tawala, lakini kwa upande wa vyama vya upinzani, mfano Chadema, wafuasi wake wengi wanagawanyika. Wengine wanakuwa wanasapoti wanakuwa na ilema kwamba tunasapoti upinzani, lakini upinzani upi, Chadema ama ACT Wazalendo ama vipi? Kwa hiyo tunaona nguvu yao inakuja kupotea hapo mwishoni, lakini situation ilivyo ni kwamba hawa watu kama wapo sawa.
The folly of a disjointed opposition everywhere. Let's take a break now. We're speaking with Rajab Hassan. He's a KTN news reporter in Tanzania. We are covering the election that's due to take place on the 28th of October in that country. Campaigns have officially closed, and so we want to understand exactly what's happening now in the run-up to that. 25 minutes to 8, past 8, I beg your pardon, 25 minutes after 8 o'clock. This is the Situation Room on Spice FM on KTN Home.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. The weather with Spice FM.
Okay, just partly cloudy conditions in Nairobi, mostly cloudy at 17, highs of 27 and lows of 14 today. In Njeri, partly cloudy at 17, highs of 24 and lows of 14. Nakuru weather is mostly sunny today at 16, highs of 25 and lows of 13. Experiencing some sun, some rains later on. Eldoret, mostly cloudy at 16 degrees, highs of 22 and lows of 13 with a chance of rains later. Moving out west, it seems this is what it's going to be. Kisumu is partly cloudy at 23. Highs of 28 with showers expected later. It's partly cloudy in Kakamega at 19. Highs of 26 and lows of 18 with showers also expected later parts of the day. It's going to be a sprinkle in Mombasa anytime now. Mostly sunny at the moment, and the cloud cover will come in and that will change. Highs of 30 and lows of 24. It's partly cloudy in Malindi at 27 degrees, highs of 30 and lows of 25. Moving out and looking to Kampala, it's 21 degrees and mostly sunny, highs of 26 and lows of 18, and thunderstorms forecasted for the afternoon. Rain is also in the forecast for Dar es Salaam at 30 the high and lows of 23, standing partly cloudy at 26 at the moment. It's mostly sunny in Johannesburg this morning at 17 degrees, highs of 30, quite warm today, and lows of 13 with sunny conditions throughout the day. Partly cloudy conditions in Lagos at 30, that will be the high, coming down to lows of 23.
Traffic.
Okay, so Thika Road, there's a problem that we had just as you're trying to get off Kiambu Road and then join Muthaiga there, getting towards the underpass at Pangani. So it's moving slowly this morning at that point. Mombasa Road doing very well. We don't have any problems from Mombasa Road, no complaints. It looks like the traffic is flowing. It's bumper to bumper in some parts, but this is not the normal on Mombasa Road nowadays, so I don't think anybody has much of an issue there with that one. All right. Still an issue outskirts of the city going towards Maimahiu. So if you're leaving the city, don't join that road. Use Limuru Road, because then you would be able to avoid that traffic that's building up there. Okay. Anyway, you're stuck, let us know. Spice of MKE on Twitter or text us on 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Coming up to 8:30, the conversation continues right here on Spice FM, on radio, on KTN. We are on KTN Home. And online, we are on Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and spicefm.co.ke. Joining us on the line from Tanzania, Dar es Salaam, is Rajab Hassan. He's a KTN news reporter. He's been covering this election in Tanzania. Rajab, as we continue this conversation, for the benefit of our audience, this is a general election. That means it's not just a presidential election. Is that so?
Pardon?
This is a general election, so there are other seats apart from the presidential election.
Maybe can you elaborate a little bit?
So huu ni uchaguzi wa urais. Je, kuna vyeo vingine ambavyo vinagombewa kama udiwani, wakilishi bunge, ama uchaguzi ni wa rais peke yake?
Thank you so much. Now I can understand. This is a general election which include member of parliament, the president, and the councillors. So it is election which comprise vitu vingi sana, watu wengi sana ambao wanataka kuwa na madaraka ya kuongoza Tanzania. And this is because of system of Tanzania administration system, or we can say a constitutional system, ni kwamba lazima rais atasaidiwa na wabunge, atasaidiwa na madiwani katika ngazi za chini kabisa za serikali, ni local government. So ni mchaguzi ambao unahusisha president, member of parliament, pamoja na hawa madiwani, na ambao watapigiwa kura kwa siku moja. Na ambao ni hiyo tarehe 28 ya mwezi huu wa Oktoba, ikiwa zimebakia wiki chache tu kutoka hivi leo. Kwa hiyo naweza nikasema ni uchaguzi ambao si tu wa rais, ila rais tu ni kwa sababu kila mmoja yuko very interesting kupata kufahamu kwamba rais huyu ambaye alikuwa anaitwa Iron Fist ataweza kuibuka na ushindi akipingana ama akichuana na Tundu Lissu, muujiza ambao unatembea. Nadhani hilo ndio swala ambalo linafanya tusikie tu kwamba ni rais, lakini kuna vyombo vingine ambavyo vinagombaniwa hapa nchini Tanzania kwa uchaguzi ambao unafuata.
Na Zanzibar pia kuna uchaguzi?
Naam, na Zanzibar pia kuna general election, na kwa upande wa Zanzibar wao watachagua president na pia watachagua wawakilishi wa mabaraza na vile vile ni kwamba rais ambaye atachaguliwa Zanzibar ni rais wa serikali ya mapinduzi ya Zanzibar. Lakini rais wa serikali ya Jamhuri ya Muungano wa Tanzania atatoka Tanzania bara, ambapo ni John Pombe Magufuli wa chama tawala ambaye anapeperusha bendera ya CCM, na vyama vingine ni Tundu Lissu, Bernard Membe pamoja na vyama vingine vidogo kama TUF ambapo yupo Maalim yupo Lipum, yupo kama ACT kwa upande wa Zanzibar yupo Maalim Seif Sharif Hamad. Kwa hiyo na Zanzibar ni hivyo lakini vyao tu ndio vinatofautiana, kwamba kule badala ya wabunge watu ambao wanaitwa wawakilishi wa baraza. Kwa hiyo ni kama sawa, ila rais wa Zanzibar ndio rais wa Tanzania, Tanzania ya Muungano.
Mtu wa Zanzibar akienda kupiga kura hiyo tarehe 28 atapigia kura rais wa Zanzibar. There will be no ballot for the presidential election from mainland.
Lazima watu wa Zanzibar, kwa sababu Wazanzibari hawawezi wakachaguliwa rais. Kwa sababu rais ambaye atachaguliwa na watu wa bara ni ndio huyo ambaye atakuwa rais wa Jamhuri ya Muungano wa Tanzania. Kwa hiyo nadhani watu wa Zanzibar pia wana nafasi hiyo ya kupiga kura nafasi hiyo ya maamuzi ya kumchagua nani awe rais wao wa Jamhuri ya Muungano wa Tanzania.
So are you saying that the people of Zanzibar have two choices? One, to elect who would be known as the president of Zanzibar, and also to elect the person who will be known as the president of Tanzania?
Yes, of course, because mtu kuwa rais lazima apate kura apate ridhaa kutoka kwa watu ambao watakuwa na waongoza. Kwa hiyo Wazanzibari hawawezi kuchaguliwa na rais wao na watu wa bara pekee, kwa sababu tukija kuangalia pia Tanzania bara ambayo zamani ikiwa inafahamika kama Tanganyika ni sehemu ya Tanzania visiwani, ambayo ni Zanzibar yenye visio viwili vya Unguja na Pemba. Kwa hiyo Watanzania wa Zanzibari wana haki ya kumchagua rais wao ambaye anatoka upande huu wa bara. Na hata ukija kuangalia tarehe za masuala ya kampeni, pia tarehe zao zilikuwa zinatofautiana ili kupisha nafasi ya kuwapata yule kiongozi ambaye ataongoza wao na vile vile kumpata rais ambaye atamuongoza kwa ujumla.
What do the people of Tanzania want? Every time there's an election, there's something that they want to change. What are you seeing that people in Tanzania want change for?
For this currently general election and through rallies experience, people want some people want justice and peace, and some want development in all aspects, social and even to grow bigger, to be the country which will be strong enough to kufanya ile vitu vyake ambavyo vinaifanya binafsi. So Watanzania wanataka maendeleo, na vile vile Watanzania wanataka haki na usawa. Kwa hiyo kuna makundi mawili ya watu ambao wanataka nini hapa Tanzania. Wanaotaka maendeleo wanaonekana ni watu ambao wapo katika chama ni wafuasi wengi wa chama tawala CCM, ambao hata katika kampeni zao kiongozi wao kinara anaonekana akihubiri sana masuala ya maendeleo na kukua kiuchumi, kuwa strong enough, kuwa taifa la uchumi wa kati na kuendeleza miradi ya kujenga barabara, kununua ndege, kufufua mashirika ya reli, kufufua viwanda na vitu kama hivyo, na vile vile pia kuishi ama kuendeleza mtangamano wa Jumuiya ya Afrika Mashariki. Hichi ni chama tawala, CCM, kinahubiri hayo. Lakini chama cha Demokrasia na Maendeleo, ambao ni chama kikuu cha upinzani, chenyewe kinahubiri swala la usawa, haki na utawala wa sheria. Kwa hiyo bila shaka utaona sasa Watanzania wamegawanyika katika makundi mawili na wanataka vitu viwili tofauti, lakini yote kwa yote haya mambo yakiungana kwa pamoja yanaweza kaifanya ndio yanaleta ile maana ya kweli kwamba hili ndio taifa ambalo lina misingi yote. Kwa kukiwa na maendeleo na vile na utawala wa sheria, ndio maana ya nchi. Kwa hiyo Watanzania wanataka vitu hivi, lakini wanakuwa katika makundi mawili tofauti. Kwa hiyo kufikiwa kwa hayo yote ambayo Watanzania wanayataka, bila shaka inaonekana kwamba ni ngumu sana, kwa sababu huyu anataka hiki na huyu anataka hiki, lakini kuwa na nguvu ya pamoja katika kutekeleza hilo jambo, kutaka maendeleo pamoja na usawa wa haki, ni vitu ambavyo vinaonekana kabisa kwamba hata kama wanavitaka Watanzania watavipata kwa kuchelewa sana. Ila labda itokee kwamba kile ambacho chama fulani kilitaka kikirudishe, basi chama ambacho kitapata ridhaa ya kuongoza nchi, basi kinaweza kikajumuisha hiyo katika sera zake. Kwa hiyo kama mfano kama CCM imekuwa ni chama ambacho kimeshinda labda katika uchaguzi huu unaokuja, basi wanaweza wakachukua zile sera za chama cha Demokrasia na Maendeleo zikaifanya ikawa sera zao, ili kuhakikisha kwamba kuwapa Watanzania kile kitu ambacho wao wanataka. Kwa hiyo kuna makundi mawili. Watanzania wanataka vitu viwili, wanataka maendeleo na vile vile wanataka haki na usawa, na vile vile wawe na uwezo wa kuzungumza, challenge government yao, vile vile waweze kutoa kile ambacho wanadhani kinapaswa kifanywe, na vile vile kuibua vitu ambavyo vinafanywa kwa siri labda na vitu kama hivyo.
Bwana Rajabu, nikuulize, how many women parliamentarians do we have in the Tanzanian parliament?
I didn't have an exactly number of women in the parliament, but the number is not enough.
Si wengi.
Feel proud of. Yeah, they are not many. So it is not a number to feel proud of.
The reason why I ask is because we have it in the news that a certain politician, a certain candidate for the Mara parliamentary seat, a lady by the name of Catherine Ruge, was apparently accosted and beaten up by the police. Have you heard of this incident?
There are so many things happen at the same time, so I didn't get this.
All right. Why I was asking was this: do you think the Tanzanian voter is ready to vote in a woman president?
I think
yani inawezekana tuseme kwenye hali ya kufikiria peke yake, hata kabla hatujatimiza fikra, inawezekana kwamba mpigaji kura wa Tanzania anaweza kumpigia mwanadada awe rais wa nchi huru wa Tanzania.
Hilo jambo bado ni jambo ambalo bado ni mbegu. Kwa hiyo inahitaji kupaliliwa, kumwagiwa maji ili kukua zaidi. Kwa hiyo Watanzania bado hawako tayari kuongozwa na mwanamke. Ila kwa jinsi ambavyo naona, ipo siku Watanzania watakubali kuongozwa na mwanamke, kwa sababu tukiangalia katika uchaguzi huu wa mwaka 2020 ni kwa mara ya kwanza ama katika kuandika historia, kuna wanawake wengi takriban 4 wamejitokeza katika kugombea nafasi ya urais. Na wabunge ni wengi sana, hata ukiangalia katika chama cha Demokrasia na Maendeleo wabunge wengi sana wanagombea katika nafasi za ubunge pamoja na hata udiwani. Vile vile hata kwa CCM pia tumeona wanawake wengi walijitokeza katika kugombea nafasi hizo, na hizo tu ni njia ambazo zinaweza zikawafikisha wao mbali kuweza kugombea katika nafasi ya juu kabisa ya uongozi. Lakini kwa wakati huu unapozungumza mwaka 2020 au hata 2025, hii bado ni mbegu. Watanzania na hata wanawake hao pia bado wana kazi kubwa sana kuhakikisha kwamba wanawashawishi Watanzania waweze kuongozwa na wao, kwa sababu tu ni kwamba mfumo wa maisha ya Watanzania na jamii nyingi za Kiafrika ni kwamba kuna mfumo dume ambao tunaona baadhi ya mashirika, serikali, watu binafsi wanajaribu kufanya usiwe na nguvu zaidi katika kutokomeza kabisa. Kwa hiyo nadhani pindi ambapo Tanzania itaweza kutokomeza mfumo dume katika nyanja zote za kisiasa, kijamii pamoja na kiuchumi, ndio wakati ambao Watanzania watakuwa tayari kuongozwa na mwanamke, ila sio kwa wakati huu ambao mfumo dume unatawala vyama vya siasa na shughuli nyingine za kimaendeleo. Hata katika tu ile nafasi ya familia, baba ndio mwenye sauti zaidi. Kwa hiyo sidhani kama baba ambaye mwenye anadhani kwamba mke wake ni yuko chini ya miguu yake hawezi kukubali kuongozwa na mtu ambaye anadhani kwamba ni mtu yuko chini yake. Lakini kuna mabadiliko ambayo yametokea. Kwa mara ya kwanza Tanzania imekuwa na makamu wa rais ambaye ni mwanamke, Mama Samia Suluhu Hassan. Kwa hiyo tunaona huenda ipo siku Tanzania watakubali kutawaliwa na kiongozi wa juu kabisa, hata katika ngazi ya rais na mwanamke. Lakini kwa wakati huu nadhani unaweza ukaliona.
I mean, it's an issue, right? And so now the question would be then, politics in Tanzania, looking at this whole race, are the politics issue-based or are they individually based? As in campaigns, are they around issues that the country is struggling with? Are they around issues that the people are hoping will be sorted? Or are they around individuals? Like this issue we've talked about, gender. Are there issues that candidates want to sort out? Are there issues that government is dealing with? Or are they around individuals?
Sadly to speak, those candidates, I did a story about a woman who is women candidate, and he told me that he struggled for himself at the point ambayo yeye yupo wakati huu, lakini kabla ya kuwa na nia ya kugombea katika nafasi ya urais, mashirika mengi yalikuwa yakimsapoti kuambia kwamba sasa gombea, fanya hivi, wakamwezesha, na wao ndio wamempa hiyo njia ya kugombea urais au kuwa na nafasi ya juu. Lakini wakati ambapo ameingia kugombea nafasi ya urais, mashirika haya yamerudi nyuma. Kwa hiyo yeye anafikiria kwamba au haya mashirika hayawezi kumsapoti kwa wakati huu ambao anagombea urais kwa sababu labda yuko katika chama ambacho ni cha upinzani, labda anadhani hivyo. Kwa hiyo anasema sasa huyu mama ambaye anaitwa Queen Cuthbert ambaye alikuwa anagombea kupitia chama cha ADC, anasema kwamba inawezekana inahitajika nguvu zaidi katika kuhakikisha kwamba na wao pia wanafanya, lakini kwa wakati huu anasema kwamba wako peke yao. Kwa hiyo unaweza ukaona, lakini tukitazama katika wakati huu wa kampeni, viongozi wengi ambao wana nafasi za juu wanajaribu kulizungumzia hili, wanaonesha namna ya kuguswa na jambo hili, wanataka kuleta mabadiliko. Na vile vile kuna asasi nyingi tu za kiserikali, za kibinafsi zinashughulika na masuala ya wanawake, na kwa kiasi fulani zimefikia malengo, lakini zinashindwa kuhakikisha kwamba mwanamke huyu anafanikiwa ama anafikia ile lengo ambalo yeye alitaka. Mfano kama huyu Queen Casket alitamani kwamba mashirika ambayo alikuwa akimsapoti ama yakimpa hamasa yangeweza kuwa na upande wake, kwamba wakisimama jukwani waseme sasa wanawake mpeni kura huyu mwanamke kwa sababu ni mwanamke. Na kuja kuangalia kundi kubwa na lenye ushawishi lenye kupiga kura hapa nchini Tanzania ni wanawake. Kwa hiyo wanaamini kabisa kwamba mfano mashirika haya majority of voters here are not youth, wala sio wazee, ni wanawake. Na wanawake ndio ambao naweza kusema wana nguvu kubwa na ushawishi katika harakati za kupiga kura. Na ndio maana viongozi wengi wanajaribu kuhakikisha kwamba wanawake wanakuwepo katika rali zao, wanawapa ile platform kuwepo pale, kwa sababu ndio kundi kubwa ambalo lina uwezo ama lina uwezo wa kuamua kushawishi nani awe rais wao. Kwa hiyo lakini kundi hilo linalaumiwa kwa kutokuwa support kundi lao. Yaani mwanamke anashindwa kumsupport mwanamke mwenzake. Hicho ndio kitu ambacho wanasiasa wengi ambao wanagombea katika nafasi ya urais wanatamani kuona kwamba hicho kitu kinabadilika, kwamba mwanamke hawe ndio supporter wa kwanza kabisa wa mwanamke mwenzake.
Rajab, we want to thank you very much. Thank you very much for speaking to us now, Rajab Hassan, KTN reporter in Tanzania. As we conclude this, Rajab, so official campaign season period has ended. So what do we expect to see in the next 12 days or so?
Oh, but sorry. It is not official ended. So the campaign will end around in 27, a day before election.
Okay.
A day too,
and but yeah, a day before election.
Okay.
But for this, some they decide that we end here because they think it is enough.
Kazi kwisha. But this is only CCM that has said wamefanya kazi ya kutosha.
Yeah, but it is for presidential candidates, but campaign is still going on.
Okay.
And hata nilivyokuwa hapa kuna gari limepita hapo chini linamnadi mgombea wake wa ubunge. Kwa hiyo nadhani ni na pia kuna baadhi tu unaweza kukuta anakwambia tunahitimisha, kwa sababu wanahitimisha kwamba watu kuja kwenye huo mkoa tena, mfano kama Dar es Salaam, kwamba rais mgombea wa urais hawezi kurudi tena Dar es Salaam, ataenda kufungia sehemu nyingine na vitu kama hivyo. Lakini bado hivi vyama bado nadhani tutakuwa hata Spice FM na wengine bado wana nafasi nyingi sana za kusikia kitu ambacho bado kinaendelea kwenye kampeni za Tanzania. Kwa hiyo wanasema ni dakika za la salama na
Asante. Rajab, thank you very much. We'll reach out to you before the elections and also just after the election results have been declared. Thank you, and we wish you a good day in Dar es Salaam.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rajab.
The Situation Room is Kenya's biggest conversation every Friday up to the election, and soon after we will be tackling the Tanzania story. Let's take a break now for our audience on KTN Home. Thank you very much for watching us this week. Join us again on KTN Home next week, Monday to Friday, 7 to 9. But this conversation happens on Spice FM every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Good morning. It's now 10 minutes to 9.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
So the question that we are asking this morning, and we want to award two lucky listeners with the gift hamper from the new KCC, is why is this lactose-free milk sweeter than the other milks? Why is the lactose-free milk sweeter than the other milk? But now let's understand what this whole issue of lactose and lactose intolerance and why some people can take milk where others cannot take milk. Joining us on the line is an expert on these matters, is Dr. Alan Rajula. Dr. Alan is a consultant gastroenterologist at the Aga Khan University Hospital in Nairobi. Dr. Ari, good morning.
Good morning.
And thank you very much for speaking to us. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Okay.
So, Doc, we want to understand lactose intolerance, just from the basics. What is lactose intolerance?
Basically, what happens to milk products, it contains lactose. Now, we've got an enzyme that's produced in the small intestine called lactase. So what lactase does, it breaks down the lactose component of milk into simple sugars, actually called glucose and galactose. So what happens when you start getting the intolerance, you start having reduced levels of the lactase enzyme. This is actually more common amongst Africans and Asians and Hispanics compared to Caucasians, and tends to get you get more and more deficiency as you get older. So what does deficiency mean? What it means is that instead of the lactose being broken down in the small intestine into the glucose and galactose, it goes unchanged all the way into the colon. So once it gets into the colon, the colonic bacteria now break it down into something different. It breaks it down into what we call the short-chain fatty acids and hydrogen. And now this hydrogen and the fatty acids are what cause the symptoms of lactose intolerance, which will include bloating, excessive flatulence, loose stools. And it's pretty much very common for most people to develop it during adulthood as you get older. There are two forms of lactose intolerance. There's the acquired one, which is the adult onset lactose intolerance, and there's a primary one. Primary one is extremely rare, and most people will not have that one. It's the one that you're born with. You already have a mutation or complete deficiency of the enzyme. So the one that we commonly know, the one that most people commonly experience, is actually the one that develops later on in life. So that is what lactose intolerance is.
How can you be sure how can you be certain that what you may have is lactose intolerance, or must you have a test, Dr. Allen?
All right. So the easiest way to actually do it is an exclusion diet. Exclusion diet means you continue your normal diet, but just exclude milk products. Now, if you take, for example, if you have lactose intolerance and you take, for example, half a glass of milk, it can give you the symptoms of intolerance, which is the bloating, the flatulence, the loose stools, and so forth, for even up to 5 to 7 days. So typically what I do with my elimination diets, I actually ask them to stop taking the milk products for at least 8 weeks, which is completely off it. Now, if your symptoms significantly improve, that confirms the diagnosis. There are other tests that can be done. There's a test called a breath test, a lactose breath test, but that is not available locally and it's extremely expensive and not really cost effective to actually have as a routine testing system. So the best way to actually confirm it is to completely remove the product and you find the symptoms improve. If you reintroduce the milk, you find the symptoms come back. That confirms the lactose intolerance.
Right.
There's the issue of lactose intolerance, and then there is being allergic to milk. What's the difference?
No, lactose intolerance means it's because of the enzyme that's in the bacteria. It's because of the lack of the enzyme that's in the small intestine. So it's not an allergy. But the allergy to milk is because of an allergy to the protein, which means the people who take milk who are allergic to it will get things like skin rash and so forth. While lactose intolerance is simply in the gut. And to confirm the milk allergy, we actually have what we call a food allergy panel, which is actually available. We even have it here at Aga Khan, which also picks the casein, which is actually the protein that we pick on specifically in the milk. And once that is positive, that confirms the allergy. So it's extremely different. And also lactose allergy is potentially dangerous. While lactose intolerance is more of an uncomfortable condition. It's not dangerous.
Okay.
It's just that if you take milk and you're lactose intolerant, you expect to start getting a bit of bloating and diarrhea and flatulence, which can actually even be embarrassing amongst your colleagues at the workplace and so forth. So it's not a dangerous problem. So they're completely different.
How is it, Dr., that this condition that you speak of is commonly found among Africans, Hispanics, and Asians? Why? What is the peculiarity in the makeup of these groups of people that makes them an easy target for this condition?
Now, it's simply genetics. There are some conditions that Caucasians are more predisposed to, like inflammatory bowel disease and so forth, and there are some conditions that Africans are more predisposed to. So this is just simply genetic. So it's something you cannot control.
What is it in our genetics that makes it more vulnerable to it?
No, we don't know why, but for some reason we just seem to get some deficiency as we grow older.
Okay. Finally, doctor, as we talk about lactose intolerance and people taking now lactose-free milk, The question emerges, how about people who are diabetic? Is it okay for them to take lactose-free milk?
Yes, so long as the problem with the diabetics is about the sugar. So long as there's no issue with the sugar, there's no problem.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Alan Rajula. You have really helped us to understand this. Dr. Alan Rajula is a consultant gastroenterologist at the Aga Khan University Hospital in Nairobi. Asante sana, and we wish you a good day, Doc.
Thank you.
Asante. So we still want to award 2 winners this morning, and we will ask you to just get onto our social media handles, Spice FM KE on Facebook and Spice FM KE on Twitter. And our man, Mr. Brian Amulioto, is soon going to pick 2 winners. Why is it that this Gold Crown lactose-free milk from the new KCC is sweeter than the other Gold Crown milk? Why is it sweeter than the other Gold Crown milk? So that is something we want to understand. In the next hour, we will be talking to Boniface Mwangi and his wife, Njeri, because they have been featured in a film that is premiering today. Softy is about this particular couple. It's about Boniface Mwangi. We all know Boniface Mwangi. He vied for a parliamentary seat in the last general election. He ran a campaign where he even did some crowdfunding, asking people to support his campaign. We want to understand what made him just choose to get into this. Boniface used to work at the Standard Group a couple of years back. The photographer, after the 2007 post-election violence, he documented that with his camera, and then that also launched him into activism in seeing what was happening during the post-election violence, in wanting people to clearly see some of the photos that could not be published on newspapers or even in other media. But he wanted to do that. In fact, he had a campaign called Picha Mtaani, in which he went and printed all these photos that he had taken, and he was putting them up for display around the country for people to see the other side that maybe people did not see in the media of the 2007 post-election violence. All right? He has also even released a memoir called Unbounded. He released it in 2017. We'll be speaking to him shortly. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. Remember, you can join the conversation by SMSing 40127 or also posting a comment on our social media handles, Spice FM KE, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, and even you can call in 0719 012 600. Good morning. It's now 9 o'clock.
Spice FM, Nairobi. Traffic.
Okay, so there's traffic outbound of the city today, and we're still looking at Maimahiu, that area still clogged up. We're also looking that it's less than normal on Mombasa Road, also on Thika Road. We don't have much of a problem there. It seems that traffic is behaving very well today. Mombasa Road, not so much. A little bit of clog up here and there. It's going to slow down around the areas where construction is taking place on the new expressway, and then Uhuru Highway until right after the Nyayo Stadium roundabout through to Westlands. It's bumper to bumper in some parts, but then it's smooth in other parts. So it looks like a good Friday when it concerns traffic today. Unless I'm wrong in some areas, do let me know. Spice of MKE on Twitter or 40127. Text.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Nduh Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room The only way to start
2
your
minutes
day.
after 9. The conversation continues. City, as we begin this final hour of the show, what is today's proverb?
If a man wants to grow a long tooth, not just a tooth, a long tooth, you know, the other one is not a question whether you want or not, they grow. Okay? He should have a lip to cover it.
So there's already a lip.
Not to cover a long tooth.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And you know it's long because it stands out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Essentially, telling you grow a lip. If you're
Okay.
going to grow the long tooth, grow a long lip.
So people with big lips, it's because they have big teeth.
That is certainly the way you would look at it. I haven't gotten there yet, but give me time. I will join you shortly.
Okay. Let's reward our two listeners this morning. Mr. Brian Amulioto has picked two. We were asking, why is the Gold Crown lactose-free milk sweeter than the other milk? And Lucy Morioki says lactose-free milk is sweeter than regular milk because when lactose is broken down, it's broken into two individual glucose and galactose in form of sugar. Then Ruth Kwamboka says lactose-free milk is broken into two glucose and galactose, which have a higher level of sweetness than lactose, hence it makes it sweeter. Yes, it's all about the issue of breaking down this lactose so that then it's able to get into your system, like the Daktari explained to us. And then when you have that, then you are able to feel like I can accommodate this. So when you take this Gold Crown lactose-free milk, it will taste sweeter because the sugar has been broken down. To our new winner this morning, Ruth Kwamboka and Lucy Morioki, congratulations. Brian will get in touch with you shortly via the social media portals to let you know how you pick this beautiful hamper from New KCC. And we said it has the Gold Crown lactose-free milk. It has what else?
The normal UHT milk
Normal UHT milk.
and some butter.
Some butter.
Yes.
Right. So tomorrow, know who butters your bread.
Is the butter lactose free?
That's a good question.
This
Would
particular one? It's a good question. It's a good question.
Or you assume that in the process of making it butter,
It has broken down the lactose.
because you've actually changed the composition of what it was and made it into a different commodity.
Indeed. So as we get into this final conversation of the week, there is an issue of, and we started, was it this week that we started that conversation, or was it last week, when we had the conversation with Mwalimu Mutemu Kiama and talking about the civil society and wanting to take, stop complaining about leadership and actually throwing your heart into the ring and saying, I want to participate in this. So civil society organizations are organizing, and we have also seen some members of civil society in the past coming from civil society, seeking electoral positions, getting into elected positions in parliament or in other areas, and we've seen how they've performed. Now, this is one of them. Civil society activist Boniface Mwangi, between 2007 and 2017, very, very much present, very visible in very many demonstrations and conversations. He's among those that organized that very visual demonstration outside Parliament where they came with pigs and poured what they said was pig blood on the streets of Parliament Road, saying that they want to demonstrate because they say that these MPs have become MPigs, just feeding off the sweat of Kenyans and not even caring what's happening, and they're as dirty as pigs. That was very visual demonstration. We've also seen Boniface Mwangi participating in demonstrations for the primary school. What's it called? Was it called Langata Road?
It's Langata
Yes, it
Primary.
Yep. Demonstrating there, leading other people to come and join this demonstration. We've seen them participating in other demonstrations around the country. And then in 2017, he said, you know what? I want to seek elective position. Joined a party. They had a serious campaign seeking to be the MP for Starehe constituency. And we, of course, know that he did not win because the gentleman called Jaguar is the one who ended up winning that seat. Okay, but participated. This is the way to go for, activists. Should people now be looking at them and saying, you have really been campaigning for good governance? Why don't you come and show us what that good governance is all about?
Was it a matter of him and the political party on which he decided to launch his campaign, or was it because this gentleman who is now the current MP, I believe, is a musician. So by virtue of being a musician, the likelihood of being known and heard by more people, should we say, is higher? Because Jaguar, from the pictures I've seen, strikes me as a youthful individual.
He is.
Boniface Mwangi also strikes me as being a youthful individual.
Yes.
So, and in terms of the profile of what the person represented, because remember, every politician comes out as the true representative of the people. Okay? Now, the person whose CV pointed to actually representing people by voicing their issues, I would argue from a purely layman's perspective, that Boniface Mwangi had done more in that field, or perhaps it is I who has not listened to the songs that one Mr. Jaguar has been singing. Maybe in his songs, he was actually fighting for the cause of the downtrodden. I don't know.
Some songs had that message. Our leaders, they get into parliament and they just forget about us. And, want to vote a border, something like that. He had songs that also had messages that contained some form of activism. Actually, that particular seat had a number of youthful candidates. The other youthful candidate is a gentleman called Stephen Bogo of ODM. Same seat. So ODM had a youthful candidate, Jubilee had a youthful candidate, and then we had this Boniface Mwangi from his party, youthful candidate. Now, if you want to talk about, so who is known more by the people, the voters of this? Who have the voters interacted with more?
Actually,
maybe they've interacted with the music of Jaguar. They've also interacted with the demonstrations
of Boniface.
I would take it further. You can't carry a demonstration on your CD and listen to it, but you can carry a song.
Yep.
But then I would also ask the question, what constitutes the voting blocks in that particular constituency? All right.
In terms of demographics.
Yeah. Demographics, the youth take the cup everywhere in the country. But in terms of, for instance, the people who might go to that constituency to work, but they don't live there, so they don't necessarily vote
there.
So now, if there are businesses without large business entities within that constituency, I would ask, who are the people who are best represented? Because it's in these formal settings or even informal settings where you get groupings. And it is groupings that can guarantee you some form of almost guaranteed vote, as opposed to just an open field where everybody just sort of like votes the way they see fit. That's why people talk to women groups, they talk to church leaders, they talk to church leaders, they talk to youth groups. And that's why they do this. Because that is a formal setting within which you will actually already get a crowd. But Starehe constituency is an interesting, historically, an extremely interesting constituency. Yes.
It is. Starehe, for those who don't know, actually represents the CBD. So the CBD is in Starehe constituency, and Starehe constituency also extends into some bit into South B and into some parts of Gikomba Market and others. The entire Grogon area, where you talk about all these informal garages and shopkeepers and all. And like you said, there are very many people who come to work in the CBD or they run their businesses in the CBD, but they haven't registered for election to vote in any of the polling stations in Starehe constituency. So there are people who would really interact with the daily activities of Starehe, but they don't vote there, which also brings in another question of how people register to vote. You hear someone saying that they've registered to vote in Malakisi, and they only go to Malakisi over December. The rest of the time, they live here, they work here, they are residents of Nairobi. They live somewhere in Nairobi, they work somewhere in Nairobi, and they do not want to participate in choosing the leadership of Nairobi. So even if you talk to people, they'll tell you, my MP. So if I ask you, who's your MP? If you ask C.T. Muga who is his MP, he'll tell you the MP from Muhoroni.
Actually, I know my MP.
Without giving a name.
No, the point that he's making is a valid one. Not everyone knows their member of parliament. Yes, I happen to know my member of parliament.
But where is your member of parliament? Is Nairobi or
I have 2 members of parliament.
Where did you vote?
I vote in Nairobi.
Okay.
Yes.
If I ask you immediately, who's your MP? Which of them comes to mind?
The one in Muhoroni.
The Muhoroni MP.
Yes.
Why?
Because that is, first of all, let's start by understanding where it is I come from and certain basic facts about where I come from and the people who come from where I come from.
Okay.
Home is very specific, Muhoroni. Yes. So I have roots there, and so I am more inclined towards, should we say I'm more sympathetic, and then I'm more inclined towards associating with things that actually happen in that part of the world. Yes.
How
Would it
often? Go ahead.
Would it be also that you resonate more with maybe developments that you've seen by this particular member of parliament where you're from and where you're likely to go back to?
You know where I come from is where my relatives are. Huh?
That's what I'm saying. Home, where
Yes.
your relatives are.
So what happens there, through my relatives, should we say, I almost have a blow-by-blow detail of what happens. Almost sometimes on a daily basis. I'm informed. And now with social media, I'm even more informed.
So you're in touch.
I am actually in touch. If you ask me my constituency, I vote in Kilimani Primary School. All right?
It's Dagoretti North.
Yes.
Ding dong.
Yep.
Yes. If you ask me who my MP is, I'm not very sure.
Simbarati.
But I think it's Simbarati. Okay? Now, I know it is Simbarati, end of story. If you ask me who my MCA is, I don't know.
You have absolutely no idea.
If you ask me who my chief is,
If we
I
ask you
don't
what
know.
your ward is,
I'll say Kilimani.
that's it. You're right.
Okay? But do I know the chief? No. Do I know the MCA? No. So, again, it is for that reason, and that's that is the experience that actually more or less informs my understanding of this. And that's why I said there are people who may work in that constituency, but they are not necessarily residents of that particular constituency. Yes. So even if they have large numbers, in terms of the voting impact,
Yep.
inconsequential.
So does it make more sense, CT, now that you spend a lot of time in the constituency that you voted in? You spend a lot of time in Dagoretti North constituency, Kilimani ward.
That is the assumption. No, I don't.
How many nights in a year do you sleep?
No, it isn't night.
How
It is-
many days in a year do you...
Okay.
How many times in a year do your children get out of your home in Kilimani ward and go to a school somewhere and come back? How many times in a year do you think about this provision of services in that area? And that is-
Actually,
so why?
why don't you let me answer you
What is it that
honestly?
made you decide that you are going to register as a voter in Dagoretti North constituency, knowing full well that your relatives are in Muhoroni?
The simple reason is my relatives are more than me. And if you're talking about the influence that they might be able to bring to bear on the member of parliament is greater than mine. Yes, I spend a great deal of time in the constituency I live in. That is true. But what is also equally true, it's more convenient for me. That school happens to be something like 200 meters from where I live. So in terms of voting, these crazy hours I hear people waking up to go and vote, I am not subjected to them. And even more importantly, where I live, I really have no reason to know who my member of parliament is. The basic amenities that people seek to have, where I live, I found those amenities there. I don't have to even look for them. I don't even have to think about it.
So why participate in the electoral process for that constituency?
It's called choice, Baba. Choice.
If you're saying that it doesn't really matter to you, if you're saying that
No,
it
it
doesn't
doesn't-
impact you,
not
if you're
really.
saying that you don't really care who the member of parliament
Care,
is,
it's you who's put in.
Okay.
I said I don't know my member of parliament.
but you don't bother.
It's not bother. I don't need to know him.
You don't need to know your
No,
member
I
of
don't.
parliament. You don't need to know your MCA.
no.
You don't need, therefore, by extrapolation, you don't need to know your governor.
All right, let me answer.
So
let me
why
answer.
does it?
Let me make it simpler for you to understand, Derek. I don't know the president. Okay? I actually even don't need to know him. I just know he is the president. What I'm more concerned about is the things that matter to me and my neighbors.
Are they being done?
That's it.
Okay.
Am I being represented well in this? Beyond that, I don't need to know these people. And that is the truth. I don't need to.
Okay.
Now, if you have a need to know your MP, then perhaps you could inject me with this particular serum so that I can also understand why it is so important for me to actually know my member of parliament and my MCA.
Let me try. Let me try to.
Yes.
So you have gone and made a decision on who is going to be your representative. You've gone and made a choice at the ballot on this is the person that I want to represent me.
Actually, no.
You were not told.
That's not how I did it, actually, Eric. No, me, I voted for the party.
You weren't just ticked.
Oh,
Yes,
voilà.
me, I voted for the party.
Six-piece suit.
No. There's some individuals in that party I didn't particularly like. But generally, I voted for the party.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So you went and voted for the party.
Yes.
Why? Because you believed in what the party was representing.
No, the people who are in that party are people who are known to me. Some of them I actually like.
So
that is my reason.
Some of your friends.
Yes, some of them are my buddies.
voted your
That is the
friends
reason
into
why.
government.
So I figure if so and so is heading this thing and is my buddy, or so and so is a part of this and is my buddy, yeah, let me give them my support. That is the honest way in which I look at this whole thing.
I don't think you're very far from the decisions that other people make as well when it comes to.
No, Eric clearly is a little more philosophical about these matters.
He gets to know.
And he gets to understand, know, interact. It's not that I don't want to interact. I don't see the need to.
No, I think a majority of voters want to know who their MP is. Now, it could be for very different reasons. It could be for very... That's why you ask somebody who their MP is and they'll tell you.
Look.
I come from so-and-so's constituency. I come from so-and-so's... You associate the MP with the constituency.
Eric.
Or the governor with the county.
I'm going to jump the gun. If our guest, Boniface Mwangi, stood for an office, aspired to the office of being a member of parliament again, today I have met him. I will talk to him, I will know him. I will take an interest in his candidature. If I hadn't met him, it would be a name I read. And he wouldn't be any different from any other person who actually vies for that seat as a politician. But he'd be different because he's someone who has done things that I have read about and some of which I actually resonate with. That is how it is. But when you ask me about my MCA, I don't know his name. I don't know, or her. I have no idea. My member of parliament in the area I live in, I hear of him from time to time. The MP, my MP at home, I know. So it's very different. He's somebody I actually know personally.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's bring in our guests. This is a man who vied for a parliamentary seat in the last election.
Yes.
There are people who live in the constituency and work in the constituency that, of course, he had vied for. But you ask them their constituency, they'll tell you, Muhoroni, Njeri Thorne. You know, that's what they'll do. But let's first of all welcome our guests. Good morning, Boniface.
Good morning.
Good to have you, man.
Asante.
Welcome to the Situation Room.
Nashukuru. It's a nice show, actually. I listen to you guys.
Oh, thank
We
you.
wouldn't expect anything else.
No.
I'll take the polite and say thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
In fact, yes.
Yes.
If you have a member of parliament as polite as Mr. Mwangi, then you have a good member of parliament. Your Excellency, we have different thoughts towards you.
Now you can vote in the next one. Don't look at you can vote for a party in the next election. And he'll tell you which party. What's your party called?
Ukweli party. So when he said that he votes for party and you bas, mimi kwisha.
But because why? Because
Because guys go for the party with the big man. Yeah, so when you ask voters why you vote in, like, wewe uko chama ya nani? Labda ndio sema kwa huyu ama huyu. Kama uko kwa hawa sema hiyo chama sijui.
right.
Iko pande gani? They even ask you in parliament, ukishinda utakuwa unakaa pande gani? Opposition ama serikali? Because you don't have any of these big guys on your team.
But even more interesting, when people are vying for these positions, if, for instance, some of the contestants had come in the area I live in, maybe on a Saturday, and said, look, I am so-and-so, I wish to talk to you, I would have at least known them. But where I come from, I don't think anyone who wants to vie for position would bother because there aren't very many people who live there.
Yeah, middle class, they say there are not many people. But me, I did door-to-door. I did door-to-door campaign. I went to people's houses, and they still ask me that question. I'll give you a story about Mukuru slums. So I went to Mukuru slums. Hapa tu South B. Ni hapa tu nyuma. Nikaenda kwa nyumba ya msee. The guy is a father, 3 kids with a wife. Well, it looks like they live in a shanty. It's a single room. Nyumba ilikuwa inanuka mavi. Because they use polythene bags for kwenda kwa choo. So zikishaja, they throw them on Nairobi River. So I tell this man, I'm going to work for you. I'll build community toilets. I'll build public libraries for your kids to go to school and maybe come and study after school. Then he asked me, nakusikia lakini, najua utanijengea choo, hiyo ni sawa, lakini pale juu unapigia nani? This one problem was a toilet. But for him to vote for me, I had to answer that question, which I did not answer.
You had to say who you align with.
Yes. He was like, no, but this man problem in that particular moment is a toilet, because you can see his house.
Right.
Inanuka mavi. Akona shida. But he has aligned himself with the man on the top. I don't know if the man on the top, when he wins, atamfungulia bank. Ama something. Ama atakuwa anatembea sema unajua president wetu ni kabila fulani, so silipi bus fare. I don't know. No, there's a thinking by a voter that if you elect my tribe at the very top, we're going to be rich. But I'm like, Kikuus have run this country for a long time. There was first president 13 years, that was Kenyatta 1. Kibaki, that was 23. Then you have this guy, 30 years. Kikuus are the most poorest people in this country. Ukienda jela za Kenya, prison, Kamau, Joroge, Waithera, Kikuyus. Ukienda kwa hawkers, Kikuyu. Ukienda kwa Inanga Street Malaya, Kikuyu. I'm like, we're in every industry. Why? Because you are poor. There's no bank of Kikuyu somewhere in town. Atunaweza ingia sema, unajua Uhuru ni Kikuyu, hebu nipatie pesa yetu. There's none. So when you're voting, you ask me what tribe. I'm like, your tribe will not help you.
So why do you think people have this attitude?
They have been lied to by their tribal kingpins. Because when someone stands up, they say, my community. But your community is you and your wife. I came with my wife, she's there. That's my community. Sasa your community unasema ingine sijui. But when you ask your voters, like, no. Baba kiingia baba. I'm like, no. Baba kiingia bado Kibera itakuwa the slums. Unless he does something about it. But there's this notion that, if you elect my tribesman, I'm going to be at the very top. It's a lie. But your average voter does not think like that. Walinisumbua sana starehe, bro.
So when you visited these families and that they would ask you that question, how would you respond?
I was heartbroken. I'll try and tell them, actually. So the two things that actually they brought a lot. Religion, it's God's will for leaders and all these things. And then they blame their poverty to God. I'm like, Ose, there's no bank of God in Kenya. I'm a bank of Satan. And there's no Tetodidi Mandiko Satan, I'm a God. God doesn't own land or banks or anything. So when you tell me, ati ni shauri ya Mungu, God's will, I'm like, there's no God's will here, my friend. You queue and vote. When you're voting, there's no devil on the ballot, there's no God on the ballot. It's individuals. So chague sisi na sera zetu, badala kuniambia kabila gani ama wewe unaendanga kanisa gani. How does my church have to do your vote? So that was the encounter, that every single discussion I had with the voter wasn't rational.
Maybe there's an issue with the church.
We should ban churches, my friend.
No. They want
serious.
They want to understand.
Ban.
No, si choma.
Okay.
No.
I'm just calling.
Msichome kanisa. Nasema to control kanisa. Kwa sababu wale mapasta wanatudanganya. There's no way you can tell me that there's heaven huko kwenye tunaenda na mimi naishi kwa shetani hapa. Because everyday life is suffering. How come my pastor and my leaders do not live in poverty?
Right.
So why should I wait for heaven for me to enjoy life?
So is it the church or is it the individual?
No,
pastors?
the religion, my friend, because you look at the countries that actually, Africa and Europe, who prays more?
So Africa.
And then who has more problems?
Inategemea ni shida gani unasema.
Shida ni nini?
Shida ya mfuko, shida ya chakula, shida ya shule, shida ya barabara, shida ya hospitali. Watu gani wako na shida zaidi? Infrastructure and leadership.
Sisi.
Sasa nikuulize, if we prayed less and did what we prayed, then the Kenyans would progress.
Unajua hawa wazungu ambao unawataja are partly responsible for hizi shida tuko nazo. Sio kwa sasa.
Kitambo.
Hata yani ni kama wavumbuzi wa hizi shida. Wao wenyewe na zile sera zao ambazo tuletea. Sio. But shida ambayo tuko nayo, if you ask me, and you're right there 100%, ni yetu.
True. Because they left.
And we are
in a way walienda.
We are the answer to our
hii mambo ya kusema viongozi wamechaguliwa na Mungu ni uongo. Kwa sababu Mungu ana kura. God doesn't vote. The devil doesn't vote. We vote. So don't tell me God said where? Mlikuwa na Mungu wapi? Wewe ulimuona wapi? Au kumuona? So why you going to tell me God gave you these leaders? How do you get leaders?
There's a different way of looking at it. Even at the time that somebody is asking you, what church do you go to?
Yes.
Or what religion do you belong to?
Yes.
How do you worship? They are trying to understand you from your moral perspective. They want to understand whether, you see, if I am a Christian and I belong to this particular denomination, then there's, and I hear somebody who's that or who's like that, I can see that there's something we have in common.
Eric.
We have something in common in terms of how our values are. We have something in common in terms of how we think. We have something in common in terms of how we even break down our aspirations. there's some commonality.
So
So this person is basically trying
have
to
a
look at
question
you
for
and
you.
they're like,
How
you
does
are a
it-
complete stranger. How when you meet a complete stranger, what goes through your mind? You're trying to see what areas of commonality. What
Where can you
school
connect?
did
No,
you go
this
to?
is
If
nice.
this person comes and tells you, I went to this school.
I hear you.
We're in the same school.
No,
Which
the
year did you
question
leave?
is, how does my morality affect your life?
Actually, it does.
The decisions that you make.
No.
It does.
Morality actually is personal.
It is.
Ethics is communal. So if I'm not an ethical leader, I'm going to steal your money. But my morality is not
Actually, your religion does influence your ethics a great deal.
there. But he's talking about morality. So it's something about morals, your morals.
Oh, no.
But no,
The two are intertwined.
intertwined. But this country is 98% Christians.
So they say.
And that's what they claim. But we're the most corrupt country in this continent. So what does that mean?
You mean we've overtaken some of the other
Nigeria and the
Yeah.
Somalia. Yes, Nduh Okoh, we are there. You guys are the one
Congratulations, actually.
building railways to nowhere, COVID millionaires, stealing from the dead, selling our blood to Somalia. And we're still Christians and Muslims. So let me say this. It's very important. It's very important as a people to know that my morality is personal. Ethics is everything. I can't be jailed. Actually, when people are jailed for morality, it's very lose-lose things.
Actually-
But when you're jailed for ethical, like, and it's called Ethics and Anti-Corruption what? Commission. It's about ethics.
You know, Boniface, what you're saying from a personal perspective is 100% true.
Yes.
But the practice of what we call morality and ethics on a continent like ours and in our country is communal. If I practice witchcraft and all I do is run at night,
Yeah.
okay, and misbehave at night on my own,
Yeah.
running naked,
Yes.
I could say it's my own personal nighttime activity,
True.
but the community will not see it in that light.
True.
There is always a point at which what is personal to us and what is communal
but
crisscross.
how does that me running around naked at night make you not have food in your house? Because you see, let me say this. The problem is we have mistaken actually ethics for morality. And I'm not saying you should be moral or whatever it is. I'm just saying what you need is ethical leadership. And ethical leadership doesn't mean that you pray.
Where do you
or
get
go
your
to
ethics?
church.
Where will you get your ethics from?
You get your
Boniface?
ethics from the national values. It's in the Constitution.
And you're assuming that people read the Constitution.
The Constitution,
and they
the
will
Constitution
know it?
doesn't actually have morals. Actually, it has actually ethics. You get jailed for ethical grounds, not for morality grounds. These things that people go to jail for, prostitution and such things, isn't the morality, and I don't think there should be legislation about that.
Okay, in your opinion, what is ethics?
What is ethics?
Yes.
Ethics are governed by laws. So, for example, if I am administrating this country as the president, I'm supposed to uphold the law, and I'm supposed to provide ethical leadership, which means if there's a budget for a particular project, it's not going to be taken by my friends and my cronies and my relatives because I'm ethical enough to ensure there's a clear,
Okay. What will
transparent process.
guarantee those who want, let's say I want to vote for you, what will guarantee me that you will do better than the other person?
Because if the laws of this country worked, an ethical leadership means jail term.
Now, you see, that's what I'm getting at. You see, it's difficult to divorce morality from ethics in this sense. When people talk about their religion, they are talking about the really wonderful, good stuff about the religion that everybody wants to believe and talk about.
Yes.
And so they think that if you're a religious person, you will actually be, as you say, an ethical person. So in their mind, a moral person is also an ethical person. Now, the truth is that is not true.
That's not. There you go. That's not true. You can be the most immoral person. I'm not advocating for immorality. You can be the most immoral person, but at the same time, you're the most ethical leader.
If we put that into a picture, I'm hearing you saying that if you have a leader, for example, who is sitting in an office with public administration and knows that this is a budget for certain things, and you know that they play within the lines, they do what they're supposed
Yes.
to do. They were playing along ethical guidelines.
Yes.
What you do at night, with however many wives you have or girlfriends, and if you have one wife, that's completely up to you.
And
it
that's-
doesn't affect the work you do when you go.
There
to
you
office
go.
in the morning.
And I'm
There you
saying
go.
the reality and the practice of it, unfortunately, confounds what you're saying. Because that is how people will judge you by those activities that we're referring to as moral. I'm just talking about the reality.
Do you know the most? Let me not go there. But I was about to go about.
Why don't you just go there?
Let's take a break.
Let's take a break.
Go
and then-
there.
Let him go there.
There was a-
Let's take a
no,
break.
Let's take a break.
Then you
Go there.
Then you
Are you
come
sure?
Please, we want you to walk
I
there.
don't think so.
29 minutes after to 10 o'clock. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. We're speaking with Boniface Mwangi. So who are you? What are you?
I'm an activist, and I'm here to talk about Softy the film. Yeah, I want guys to go and watch Softy.
We'll talk about Softy the film right after this. Activist Boniface Mwangi is here with us in the studio, and we'll be talking about this film, which is premiering today. Good morning. Let's take a look at what's happening on the sky and on the roads.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice FM, Nakuru.
Okay, so we're looking at mostly cloudy conditions in Nairobi, overcast for some reason. Highs of 27 and lows of 14 today. Njeri light rain showers going on at 19, highs of 25 and lows of 14. Looking like it's going to be a wet weekend through into Nakuru as well. Mostly sunny at the moment at 19, highs of 25. Eldoret mostly cloudy at 18, highs of 22 and lows of 12. Going into the rains into the weekend in Kisumu as well, highs of 27 and lows of 20 today. Same in Kakamega where the high will be 25. Mombasa is 29 and mostly cloudy, highs of 30 and lows of 25. Malindi, sunshine all through today, highs of 29. Out of Kenya into Kampala, 22 degrees at the moment and mostly sunny. It'll be covered up by rains and thunderstorms later, highs of 26 and lows of 18. 30 the high and lows of 22 in Dar es Salaam. It's partly cloudy at the moment at 27. Mostly sunny conditions and warming up in Joburg at 22. Highs of 30 and lows of 13. Looking at Lagos, it's partly cloudy. The high today will be 30. East in Beijing, it's going into a Friday evening. Highs of 19 and lows of 4. London is clear at 8. Highs of 14 and lows of 7. And in Paris, cloudy conditions at 9. Highs of 14 and lows of 5. And finally, it's now Friday morning in New York at 18 degrees. Highs of 18 and lows of 8. Showers expected through the day.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Traffic.
Okay, so we're looking at cloudy conditions. So looking at the roads now is what we're looking at. Couldn't hear a thing. Okay, so Mombasa Road was behaving very well today. We didn't have much of an issue throughout today. So it looks like getting into the CBD was easy street, pun intended. Coming off out of the city, however, use Limuru Road if you can. My Mahu is jam-packed. Those kilometers of traffic are yet to be sorted out. Thika Road, where we had a bit of a clog up right around Kiambu Road trying to join with the highway, that also has reduced. So traffic was good today. Let's see what happens next week. Talk to us on Spice FM KE on Twitter. Text us on 40127.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
25 minutes to the top of the hour. We have 25 minutes. I think if we go there, we will not be able to come out. So let's move into the Softy the film. All right? Let's understand about Softy the film. This film that is premiering today is already winning accolades globally. Special Jury Award for Editing at the Sundance. Best Documentary, Durban International Film Festival, and the rest. What is Softy? Is it Softy or Softy?
So wazungu sema Softy. But mimi nasema Softy. Softy is about it's a modern day Kenyan story about my family life. It's a love story between me and Njeri and the struggle. So it goes back to pre-colonial Kenya, how it became independent, and the struggle to liberate this country, and how that affects the life of the people who fought for this country and the life of activists. So normally when you interact with Kenyans, it's the 5 minutes, 10 minutes at a TV interview, radio interview, but there's a story behind of what really goes on in my house and in our family. When Sokosai filming, my youngest was 2 years old. Now my son is 10 years old. And the story about when you see an event in the streets, what goes behind the scenes to make it happen, from procuring the pigs to me getting shot and me in the hospital. That's the story and the heartbreak. I watched it for the first time in December last year, and I cried because when it was being filmed, I was never there. I know my part because I was part of that, but this is the part of my kids and my kids growing up and what I missed to a level. I don't want to do spoilers, but it showed me that the heavy price that people pay in what they do. So it's the behind the scenes of an activist life and the life of other people who played a role in the last 10 years in this space of activism.
Boniface, what's a spoiler?
A spoiler means that if I say something, it's like I've watched the film. So I don't want to spoil for guys who want to go and watch the film. Yeah. No. So I don't want to tell you what you're going to. I don't want to tell you what you're going to watch.
I come from a background where people will actually tell you narrate the film blow by blow as you're watching it. So
what happens? What happens? The movie is adults only, and I don't know why. And that's something you need to ask Ezekiel Mutua, because it's a story about Kenya. There's no fiction in the film. It's some of the things you're going to see in your 7 p.m. news of police beating people and shooting people.
Right.
And so I don't know why it's adults only, but the movie is available across the country in theaters.
Why should people watch this film? Why?
It's going to challenge you, and it's going to show you the true colors of even the electorate. I gave you a glimpse of what I went through as I was campaigning and the interactions that I had. And so when you watch the film, you see how voters behave when they see a candidate, and you'll also see what some other candidates did to win the election. There's love, there's violence, there's murder, and all of it is true story of what really happens in this country. And I think we need to watch it for us to take a stock of ourselves, to see who we are as a people, and we decide what do you want for our future. I hope that when you watch the film, you get inspired to do something, because the country as it is, based on that story, is not very rosy. It's not very rosy. That people shouldn't die for carrying a placard or get threatened that they're going to get killed because they tweeted something, when you have a constitution that actually protects the rights.
So this film was basically camera crews following you around as you were doing your activism, as you were running your campaign.
Yes.
Same other camera crew also at home following your family around and meeting you in the evening. So it's basically like reality TV. The Mwangis.
For 7 years. It's not reality TV, actually. So there's me, but there's other people in the campaign. My campaign manager, the other candidates, the national politics. I wish you could play the trailer. It shows you what really happens behind the scenes. So it's not just me. It's our story. It's a story of Kenya through our eyes.
Okay.
Yeah.
As a media person, because that's where you started off, huh?
Yes.
Would you say that you had the idea of the film in mind, or were you just going through what you knew to be good journalism, documenting what was happening, and then the idea of the film came about? Which was before the other?
So it was actually from the word go when I met Sam Soko. We were meant to do an activism manual for like 10-20 minutes. Because when we came to the scene, we were doing pigs, coffins. Guys are like, how do you do these things? And we even used to have rehearsals for a protest. So he said, let us have a camera behind the scenes to show you what actually goes to planning a proper protest. And we shot. It was called Defiance. And we shot for like a year. And then Sam and I and a couple of other guys said, actually, this could be a film. And then the problem was, okay, maybe the good thing was, as Sam came to know me, he came to know my kids. And he came to know my wife. I was like, wait a minute. There's a story here. Because me, I'd go home. Sometimes I'm bloody. Sometimes I'm crying. Sometimes I don't go home. And my wife would be in another world through all those emotions. So Sam became the filmmaker, and I was like, the story is not about the manual. The manual is fine, but there's another story here. And so it became, so we started with Defiance, which was an activism manual, then grew into something else that is what we have today.
But what made you feel that you needed to be active in the things that happen in this country, in the lives of other Kenyans, and in speaking out about the things that you felt were not probably being spoken about adequately? What made you get to this stage where you actually put your life on the line?
So I was vocal in the beginning when I began my journey as an activist. Not even that. As a young man, I was a very vocal person. But along the way, I lost my voice because I was told by my mother, if you continue talking like this, you're going to lose your life. I got expelled from school. It was too much trouble. So I became quiet and I became a coward. And then I got a job at the Standard right here. I worked here. And now every single day I'll be sent to cover assignments by my editor, and I'll go take pictures. They'll be published, but there's nothing happens about it. And I felt it wasn't enough. But my biggest turning point was 2007 post-election violence. So seeing the violence, documenting the violence, and seeing what really happened, then coming back to the same newsroom, this one, and seeing that after we had covered the violence and everything, then the country moved on. The guys who are fighting were now drinking tea together. And I was like, there's a problem here. And my job was to cover the guys who allegedly sponsored the violence. I'm like, it doesn't sit well with me. And so I quit my job. And I thought I could help guys organize. So the first thing that I did when I quit working here, I started showing the pictures in the streets of the violence. I was trying to do public education. I'm like, you guys fought. But the last photo is of these guys shaking hands, having a cup of tea. Don't you think there's a problem? Because in between, there are many people who died, many people were displaced, but none of their daughters were raped. And none of them lost a loved one. But you guys fought for these guys, but now they're in the same party drinking tea. And I began that. And then it was, people saw the pictures, but they still went back and voted for the same characters.
Right.
I'm like, I thought maybe they're voting for these characters because they don't have an option. They say, and then can you reject?
Did what you saw in the country
Yeah.
or, around you, did that make you an activist, or were you born one?
Was I born one? Was I born one? That's a hard question. I was people would say problematic, or they say nowadays, because I grew up in approved school. And I got the name Softy in approved school because when I went to approved school, the school had people who had raped, murdered, but they were minors, so they were jailed there. It's like a Boston institution.
Right.
But for me, I was picked up because I refused to go to school. So I was thrown in there with all these hardcore guys. So they call me Softy. Because among all of them,
You have no cred.
I have no credibility. I had no street cred. So did it become, but I think getting exposed to violence and seeing what really happened, I think awakened something inside of me.
Right.
And I became who I am. Am I fearless? Sometimes I'm not fearless. I am afraid.
You know, when you think of what you have done and what you have determined to do, you've made a statement that I would like us to look at. You said the voter rejected you.
Yes.
Maybe it wasn't rejection.
Yeah.
No. If you introduce a concept of or an idea that people cannot relate to directly, it's not that they're rejecting you.
Yeah.
It's just they prefer what they know, even if what they know is oppressive. So perhaps, even when you talk about activism, there is the issue of how do you make this activism resonate with the people that you are talking to? How do you get this thing which you feel and understand? What do you do so that they can feel and understand it exactly the way you do?
Open a church. And walk around with the Bible. And I almost became a youth pastor. I grew up in ministry and I still go to church and I believe in God. But I also think that there's a way religion has made us very, we become like servants. We're very docile is the word. Turn the other cheek. Don't question authority. There's a problem with that.
Does religion really teach you not to question authority?
There's a lot of docility in religion because you can. There's scriptures in the Bible that say authority is God's appointed. There's a place that rebellion is a sin of witchcraft. The things in the Bible. But and this is very controversial. And then I'll say it, and I know I'm going to get into trouble and I'll say it. But the truth is, the first person to challenge authority and say you have too much powers was Satan. That's the first person who did that. But you have to look at it at a very intellectual, philosophical point of view. The guy said, you have too many powers. We have all do is sing for you. Let's share this kingdom. Then they shared. The story could be mythology, whatever it is, but that's the truth. And come along the way, Jesus was an activist. He came to challenge the Pharisees, the Sadducees, and the religion order. He was an activist. John the Baptist was an activist. Moses was an activist. He killed an Egyptian, then challenged Pharaoh.
He killed two Egyptians.
You see, so chronologically, if you read the Bible, actually, there's a place for rebellion and resistance. The problem is, the Arab have a saying, pray to Allah, but tie your camel. There's a role you must play in getting change.
That same Bible that you quote says, come, let us reason together.
But let me ask you, if they're not going to reason with you, what do? Let the dead bury their dead. Keep on.
You see, one of the beautiful things about the Bible or religious books is that people will choose scripture
that favors them.
Yes. But if they read it in totality and understand it, there is hardly any religious book that is not liberating, which actually, the very things that we talk about in our Constitution, the very things we talk about even in the American Constitution, What do you think their greatest influencer was? It wasn't their thinking. It was
the Bible.
Yes,
Religious text. Yeah.
Essentially, that's primarily what it was, because it clearly talked about human rights.
Yeah.
Without necessarily calling it human rights. It talked about individual rights, not necessarily calling it individual rights.
True. You remember the tax collector? What was his name?
Zacchaeus.
He said, I'll return what I've stolen 70 times 77. 7 times 7.
No. Him, he did 4.
He did 4.
Yes, the 70 would have left him completely broke.
He returned 4 times whatever he stole.
Times 4.
So the guys who actually say now nimeokoka, I'm in charge.
70 times 7 is for forgiveness.
For forgiveness.
Yes.
Let's come back to the film.
It's also Nasema. So the guys who quote the Bible and say I'm a Christian and all that, and you know they're thieves, return what you have stolen 4 times. If you know that you have property or anything that you have stolen, just return it and say, my God does not allow me to hold stolen things. But as long as you hold stolen things, you and God are not in the same WhatsApp group.
What you're right about is this. Even that very thing that you're saying is good in that it brings about accountability, which one should.
Let's come back to the film and then we go into the break, because we also want to have a conversation with Njeri. And we want to understand the other side of this film. When Boniface Mwangi was going around procuring pigs, pouring, was that actual blood?
The actual blood from the Dagoretti market.
Yeah, so buying blood and pouring and splashing blood on the streets of Nairobi and getting beaten and screaming and all. There's a woman who stayed at home. There's a woman who encouraged him in the morning, and there was a woman who stayed getting worried what would happen. And we want to understand her story as well. So I just want to ask you before you go, at some point when you were doing those things that you were seeing on TV, were you adding some of the action just because you knew that there's a camera?
If
like when you're screaming and you're saying, when you've been arrested you've just been held by cops. I mean, they are guiding you towards a police vehicle, but you're there screaming yourself hoarse. Was that for the camera? Was that to make this film?
It is wrong for a journalist to misrepresent facts. And I've never seen police officers holding someone softly. Maybe if you're a member of parliament or someone important. But even Sonko discovered he knows how to scream because of how he was being held. Kenya police do not approach you with love and caution and romance. They come with brutality and violence and hatred. And they do not hit you for the camera, they hit you for real. They don't shoot you for the camera, they shoot you for real. I've gone for surgery. I would actually tell you of my ailments if it wasn't. Medical history is private, but I have injuries that I love to live with for the rest of my life because of being at a protest and something happened to me. So anything could go wrong. No one does things for camera, actually. And actually, the film is not about me. And if I was on editing, I would have put the most violent things of me being beaten. That wasn't put there. It's all about other people. So you don't do some things for the camera, my friend.
I have to ask you, though, before we talk to Njeri, I mean, just the question before you go, do you believe that activism works? Being an active citizen will work? We're looking at things happening in Nigeria that we never thought would happen.
Yes.
Even now.
NSAS,
does it work? NSAS, NSWAT, whatever. Does it work?
It works, man. It works. I'll start with Karura Forest, a product of activism. Langata Primary School Playground, product of activism. Uhuru Park, product of activism. The right for women to vote, product of activism. The constitution that we have, it's part of street protest. Sabasaba, 2010, you got a new constitution. Without activism, there's no life. It's actually activism that brings progress. Kasarani Mwiki now have a road because of activism. The last recourse for the poor to be heard is disruption. And then how you do disrupt street protest. Civil rights in the US, product of activism. You can't have life without activism. And as I told you, even biblically, there are a lot of activists. And even I know even in Islam and other sects, there is activism every day. So as long as you are silent, we'll suffer. But when we speak up, we get heard. And SARS wouldn't have happened without people protesting. Black Lives Matter, actually. And right now is the best time to do activism because anyone, anywhere, has a platform on their phone. You can raise your voice, you can write. So activism doesn't mean going to the streets. It just means holding your leadership accountable, being an active citizen. So my call to everyone as I leave, yes, watch Softy, it's a great movie, enjoy it, but be an active citizen. Hold your leaders to account. Your role as a citizen is not just to vote once in 5 years, then wait for the next election, then vote again. Every single day, hold your leaders accountable. The same way we pray every day. I wake up in the morning and I pray to God. Same day I wake up and go to the streets and say, dude, you're not doing the right thing. If you all speak, tutamaliza corruption katika nchi.
Well said. Thank you very much, Bonnie. Just give the seat to
My
Mrs.
wife.
Mwangi.
Yes, my sunshine. All right.
And we talk to her about this. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation, having a conversation with Boniface and Njeri Mwangi about this film that's premiering today. It's called, well, the Wazungus are calling it Softy. We're calling it Softy because that's who Boniface was called when he went to Boston Institutions. Softy. We'll be right back.
Spice FM, Nakuru. Spice up your life.
7 minutes to the end of the show, and we have with us now Njeri. So, are you Njeri Mwangi?
I am Njeri Mwangi, yes.
There you go. All right, so Njeri, this man goes out in the streets and does the things that he does. There are some instances where we've seen photos and video clips of you joining him in some instances. But according to what he has told us and according to the trailers for this film, Softy, there's also the other side of being the anchor, the support, raising the kids, explaining to the kids why the father is not here, explaining to the kids why the dad is crying, explaining to the kids why this man has walked in with blood all over his clothes.
Why is he in hospital?
How was that? How has that been? Not was.
Wow. It's not been easy, but it helps that when I met Bonnie, I knew he was not one to stay still in the face of things that are not right, that are not sitting well with him. And in our very first date, when he first took me out at TC, we go have coffee. The things he talked about, I was completely awed. But then he painted for me a world, or a Kenya, not a world, a Kenya that is people are living a dignified life. And he comes from, his background is not such, but that's what he really wanted for people like himself who felt that they didn't have an opportunity at life. So that's the man I was attracted to. So when this plays out the way that it has, it shocks, I don't know if the word is shock or surprise, because I was like, oh my gosh, how can you want good things and not just for yourself? Because, I mean, if there are playgrounds for children to play, if we have hospitals, good hospitals, if we have good schools, how can you want that and then meet all this kind of violence? How can you be the only one who wants that? Or how can you be so few people that want that kind of life? So that's the person I got married to, and that's the person that I see. And it makes me very sad when he gets that kind of violence, and not just him, because he never goes for protest alone. I mean, otherwise he'd be in Mathare Hospital. People would say he's crazy, but because he goes out with all these other people who believe and want the same or different even things, then there's all this kind of violence. And so when I see it on TV, it makes me chill. I'm like, at the end of the day, I just want him to come home. Right. Just walk home, not come home in a wheelchair or on a bed that I'll have to take care of him all my life, all his life. I just want him to come home and be with me and be with his children.
People must have told you that you were absolutely crazy to stick around with somebody who was doing things like this. What were your answers?
They still do.
I'm sure. What would your answers be, really? That you have somebody who's putting himself in harm's way. What would your answers be?
I am crazy. He is crazy. But we are crazy because we want better. And if that makes us crazy, then yes. I also know that we are not the only crazy people. And if wanting, you know the way they say, if loving you is a crime, then I want to jail me forever.
Right. If loving you is wrong.
I don't want to be right. Yeah. So if wanting better for this country is crazy, then I want to be crazy all my life.
Essentially, you're kindred spirits.
You could say that, yes. We are.
So we are at the moment talking to a revolutionary, are we?
Yes, we are. I guess we are.
How would you describe your brand of revolution?
I think as a woman, and what this film also does is that you don't see what we do. You don't see the price we pay. You don't see the sacrifices that are made. And when you see this man, you see him as if he stands by himself. He does wash himself, but he cooks. There's somebody, or there are people at home that cook for him, that make sure his clothes are clean, that make sure he has a clean home to come to. that his children are well taken care of.
That listen to him.
That listen to him.
Support him.
That support him. So, but you do not see what it takes for us to be in that space. And for me, what this film does is that it humanizes this man that you see, that you call fearless and courageous and all that. Yes, he is, and no, he's not. By the time he's leaving the house, we've had, breathing. We've held and said,
yes.
we can do this, we can do this. Yeah. So it's a bit of both. And being courageous is not the absence of fear. Yeah. No. It's that you go out and still do, even if you're still, even if you're still afraid. Yeah.
You must do all those things. So where can we get to watch this film?
Akiungeuliza Boni swali has all those details. Boni, you can bring them to me. It's currently premiering today at Prestige Cinema, but today is sold out. And then it's going to be at Prestige for the next couple of weeks. It's at Parkland's Anga Plaza, Anga Cinema, from tomorrow. I think from tomorrow. Boni, please say that.
So you can watch the film at Unseen Nairobi in Center. You can also watch the film at Diamond Plaza. Anga Film. You can watch the movie in Eldoret. And from tomorrow at Prestige. Today, Prestige is sold out.
Right.
Thank you.
All right. So as we conclude the week's conversation, Njeri, talk to other, not wives, but other female activists, those who have decided to come out and speak, and those who speak behind closed doors, those who feel the agitation. What would you tell them?
You matter. You matter, and your contribution is not unnoticed. And for me, seeing me, I hope when you see the film, you see yourself. And it validates you and makes you know that you're doing something that is important, that makes a difference. Just because you're home or just because you're not being seen the way we have not been seen does not mean that you're not doing something important. And even those who are seen and have also put their lives out there, your work does not go unnoticed. And for Kenyans, I think I want us all to know that there's a price that has to be paid. The luxuries and comforts that we enjoy, people fought for these freedoms. And we must protect them, we must guard them, but we also must protect those people that fight for them. And what that means is that when we need to fight for something, don't let us come out by ourselves. Don't let us bring our entire families to fight for you as you sit back there and say, oh, manze walitiagasiwa, oh, manze wameshikwa. Don't be those people. Stand up and be counted for something, and not later, now.
Right.
Now is when it matters. The urgency is now.
Thank you very much. I mean, you couldn't have put it any better. I think even Boni could not have put it that way.
Thank you, Eric.
Asante sana for joining us today, Boniface and Njeri Mwangi, and we will be going to watch this movie, Soft Tea.
Please do.
In all the places.
Ask them to come and talk to us again
I think it's absolutely necessary.
But this conversation in my mind has only just begun.
This conversation has just begun.
Yes, there's so much I would have wanted us to talk about, but time being what it is.
Yeah.
So you guys,
I'd be happy to come back.
please.
Yeah.
Super.
Very good.
Thank you.
We have a lot to talk about. Thank you very much for tuning into The Situation Room this week. Join us again next week, Monday to Friday, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. And as we say goodbye to Boniface and Njeri, we also want to say goodbye to you, CT Muga, Nduh Okoh, and Eric Latiff. First song in the hour is Changes by Tupac. Make sense? Right? Good morning. It's now 10 o'clock.
Shake, shake, shake,